Good evening, Holliston. Welcome to the April 13th meeting of the Select Board. We have a bunch of items to get to this evening, and we're going to take something a little bit out of order due to time constraints. So I have asked the Finance Committee Chair to join us this evening. So we have Dr. Sheda here to talk to us about a couple things, and basically, what I asked him here to just sort of go over briefly, obviously he's not speaking on behalf of the Finance Committee because there's been no vote taken by that said committee. But there were a couple conversations that I just wanted to make sure that everybody here understood sort of like what was being discussed here, just so that way we can sort of set the lay of the land and see if there's any changes we want to make before we close the warrant for town meeting tonight. So the first thing is there was discussion about, after we presented the level 3 budget to the Finance Committee, there was some discussion about the bottom line numbers. So if you could just kind of give us a little clarity, like kind of what the discussion was about on that particular topic.
Sure. So when we look at the budget every year, as you know, we being the entire town, not just the Finance Committee, a lot of the assumptions that are made are uncertain because we don't have the state budget yet. But that's primarily the big one that's uncertain. We don't get a final budget from the state till typically July. Right. Because of that, what we traditionally have done on the Finance Committee side is we tend to leave a little bit of money. We budget for a slight surplus, very small surplus, because we know that there's normal variation in the local aid numbers, typically on the order of tens of thousands of dollars. I think last year was like 25, and the year before was like 38, something like that. So it's not huge dollars, but because of that, we tend to try to compose a budget that has about, anywhere between like $50,000 and $100,000 on it, such that if the budget numbers from the state vary in a bad way for us, that we don't have to take any action, right? So the original level 2 budget, I guess, by our terminology from Frank, was balanced to 0, as was yours, except that, as I point out to Frank, there was one inaccurate number in some of the assumptions. So when you fix that inaccuracy, it actually results in a surplus of, I think, $44.88, so $4,000. So last Tuesday, I presented that budget after going over it with Frank to the Finance Committee. It said this is what the level 3 and level 2 budgets look like. And there was some consternation on the committee's part about having such a low number on the bottom line. Okay. There were no, to reiterate your point, we took no votes. Mm-hmm. We took no even discussion of what to do, other than there was kind of a general consensus of it would be nice if we had more on the bottom line, because we don't
Sure.
want to get into a situation where we have to find money if the state variance is more than $4,000.
So with our financial policies, is there any statement about this bottom line, or is there anything in the financial policies about this?
I don't believe so.
Should there be?
There probably should be, yes.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because it's good. It would be good to have it there. But as I said, the reason it's not there is because this was the way, prior town administrator Paul LeBeau did it for years. Jeff didn't, wasn't involved in that, but even Travis would always bias that way. I think it's just because we have, new town manager, we have a tighter budget this year, things like this. But yes, I would be all for codifying it in the policies.
Yeah, because I think what what I noticed, and the reason I sort of wanted to talk about it particularly, is because I certainly understand the logic of it. It's just sort of, I think we're introducing it late in the game in a way. Even, it would have, we would have made different choices if we had that front of mind. We were working towards getting as close to a balanced budget as possible. So I think my last question here is, do you have any thoughts about where that should go? And obviously I recognize the committee hasn't discussed it in earnest. So, is it something where we could say, this particular article is contingent, on that, on whether or not the state aid comes back favorably or something like that? Is there something like that you're leaning towards?
I wouldn't lean. I think that the homework assignment, so to speak, that I gave the committee last week, when I wasn't sure how the committee was going to react to that lower number. Some people Sure. would say that's fine. So I was. I wouldn't say surprised, but I was, it became very clear. You were at the meeting, right?
Yeah.
Became very clear that they were concerned about that number.
Sure.
So, as you recall, I gave them the assignment of, okay, well, tell me where we're getting the money from if we're gonna make the bottom line bigger, right? And
Mhm.
that's what we're gonna discuss tomorrow night. So I have some ideas myself,
Yeah.
how to do it in a less painful way, but to be honest, I don't wanna say right now,
Of course.
because I wanna see what the committee comes up with.
But I think, my point would be is that we're here too, and we gave you a budget, and we could have and can look at those things too. And I think that, I would ask that in that situation, that it gets sort of kicked back to us to sort of say, hey, could you guys, and then if we don't have anything, that's a different ballgame here. But I think the first thing should be, we have homework. It should be like, select board has homework because they just handed a budget with 4,500 on the bottom line. That's how I view this.
Right, and to be fair, I'll say right now, if you guys discuss tonight ways you would wanna bolster the bottom line, I'm more than happy to bring that up tomorrow at the finance committee, if there are ways you prefer to do it. I don't want you to look at this as though we were somehow waiting till late in the game. I didn't have a final, as I said, we know the process got delayed a little bit. So we didn't get your budget till last Tuesday, and that's when I had just worked out that day with Frank that we only had that 4,000 on the bottom line. I didn't have the final numbers at that point.
Okay.
But that's why, I'm here today, right? Because if I will state very clearly, if you guys have suggestions on how to bolster that a little bit, I'd be happy to listen to them or have them bring them to the finance committee tomorrow.
Okay. I think Tina's chomping at the bit to ask a question, so are you?
No,
Oh,
I'm
you're not? Usually you give me that look when
Oh,
you
that
want,
look, yeah.
when you want to ask. Do you have any questions?
I just want to make sure we're talking about, in the context of historical data too, like over the past 5-10 years, does this stand out to you as remarkably different when we talk about where we are today with what's available on the bottom line, so to speak? Is this number significantly less than what we've seen in past years? And if so, these would be trends that I would think we would have discussed. I guess I'm seeing this as a policy conversation moving forward as opposed to a change in the path that we've taken for FY27. So I think that trends help us. I think policy conversations help us. I think, to deliver the level 3 budget a month ahead of town meeting is, I believe, what was requested a year ago by the finance committee. I think we're on track to accommodate a request to get the budget on the earlier side, not on the later side.
Well, Ken's point is that the document that I'd put forward said the 23rd, and we didn't vote on it until the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we had consensus here, we didn't have a vote, and
Okay.
he expected a vote.
Okay. I think we're all on track, though, to accommodate the needs of the finance committee as you're looking at these. I think that the November budget development process kicks off, and that's a fine time to have a policy in place to guide the budget development process moving forward.
I would put it ahead of that. I would actually say that it should be in July when we talk about the financial policies, and if we're going to have if we're going to do this, it should be a policy.
I hear your concern, and I don't disagree. We had the Senate President at the table. We had our state representative at the table. I believe the Senate President has a firm hand on the state's budgeting process and has so for many years. I believe she has a very strong, positive relationship with the town of Holliston and has always been forthcoming and open and transparent with us. And so when she speaks to the budget process at the state level, I have high confidence, and I think we all should. I think we all do.
Yeah.
And there was certainly no mention that the town of Holliston should be cautious or wary in the approach that we were taking in terms of where the state budget would end up. So hear your concerns, but I would see this as a policy conversation for FY28.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing the
Thank you.
concern forward.
Thank you. Damon, any comments before we go to the next thing?
I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to have a conversation about, so no
Okay.
worries on my end.
All right. And moving on, because I know your time is of the essence here for you. So the capital subcommittee met last Thursday, and the recommendation that was made is going to be made to the full finance committee from the capital subcommittee is in regards to the feasibility study was $500,000 from the DPW project, the cash from for the DPW project. Is that? And that's the recommendation from the subcommittee to
Right,
the
but let me clarify. Right?
Sure. That's
We
what-
have, it was not specifically, I wouldn't say it was specifically because of the feasibility study. It was because of the total amount of capital that we have in May, of which the biggest chunk is the feasibility study.
Okay.
The problem, and this is my opinion and was expressed at the subcommittee meeting, right?
Mhm.
problem we have is that we spent many years building up a capital set aside. Then we got into the pandemic and we reduced that, and we had a couple of tight budget years. And we've kind of gotten off track on growing that capital set aside like we were supposed to every year.
Sure.
Right? And again, look at FY '27, we're looking at the same thing, which is a level, no increase from last year. The problem with that is that we are putting increasing demands on free cash. In the past, we used to put free cash for only two things. Topping off stabilization to keep it at the correct funded ratio, and the rest would go into capital. And unfortunately, we have more things. Now we put $250 into the pension stabilization fund. We've used it to fund some warrant articles, things like that. Not bad uses of the money, but that's putting pressure on the amount that's left to go to capital, right? At the same time, we're not growing the capital appropriation, and our capital needs are still the same that they've pretty much always been, which is about $3 million or more a year. So what that is now creating, and you guys have discussed this apparently, from what I saw, there were some requests that were moved forward from May to October this year, right? Those requests, while that's a quote-unquote accommodation to help reduce the May budget, it's just putting the problem down to October, right? So, in my opinion, we have to start getting really serious about capital again. And one of the things we have to do, and all the projections that Frank gave me show that we're gonna be scraping the bottom of the policy for the next few years, unless we take some action, either growing the set aside or working to dedicate more free cash to capital or something along those lines. The conversation about the 500K was that there seems to be, and was presented to us, that the need was $2.5 million for the feasibility study. That seems like the number that tends to be the trend for them these days. And I don't want to speak to that. That's a school committee, between you and the school committee. But given that that was a request for $2.5 million and the total amount of requests we had, we looked at that and said, okay, well, part of the problem is we need to bolster capital in some way because we're scraping bottom. And since that original $7 million was allocated for debt reduction, right? We essentially did the same thing last October when we took 500,000, town took 500,000, used it for the culvert. That was tied to the DPW, but was not the original intent of the 7 million, which was debt reduction, right? So we made that adaptation because it was the right thing to do at the time. And it's the same thing here, which is when we're looking at this, part of me, again, just my opinion, I want to say that over and over so people don't think this is a committee vote, it's not a committee opinion. But part of that, of the issue is, we're now, obviously, as you know, DPW's gone through a whole nother phase, gonna have a whole nother vote this May, and all that. So it seems to me that the best way to shore up capital in the meantime is to adjust that debt offset we were gonna do and say, look, we could afford 7 million when we had Project X on the board 3 years ago. Now we got Project Y on the board, and times have changed, and so we can't put that same 7 million. We can only put, let's say, 6 if we do $500,000 for capital, or whatever number, 5, whatever. I personally, at the meeting, and you weren't there, but Frank knows this, I would like to do more, actually, and I would have preferred that the subcommittee recommend $1 million. And the reason I say this is because some of the stuff you deferred, I'd rather not defer it and say, let's just fix capital this with the money we have. Yes, it changes the DPW debt a little bit, but remember, part of that whole thing with the DPW debt was also to fund some of that debt within the levy, which we aren't going to be able to do right now, based on the capital numbers that I see. We're going to have no capacity to pay debt from within the levy. So you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul if you put more towards debt reduction, but the original working group plan was to fund some fraction of it from within the levy to reduce the debt exclusion. So there are all sorts of kind of different financial things in play here, but that's
okay.
what it comes down to.
And I think, so taking a step back from this particular part of the conversation, and thank you, that helps to understand that. I think what I'm sort of seeing that I'm, and I guess I've had a lot of trouble articulating over the years, is that you have good ideas that you're bringing to the table that we will need to talk about. First of all, we should have these in the policy discussions that we're having in July. We should be talking about these things. The second thing is that, I don't want you to have to you don't have to do this yourself. The finance committee doesn't have to do it themselves. Like, why can't we need to have mechanisms by which our boards can communicate with each other and try to work through some of these issues. And that's kind of why I invited you here, is to sort of have an opportunity to sort of hear some of these things, see if there's anything we can do. And at this stage, it's difficult to do those things. And these are the conversations we should be having over time together as boards, not just you and me talking at Coffee Haven, which certainly you've always been amenable to those things, and I appreciate those things. But that's not how we're not going to get a lot done in those situations. We still need to have the full bodies of
Right.
our boards together to be able to accomplish that.
Right, and I will say this, okay? There's an agenda item on every FinCom agenda since I've been chair that says updates from the town manager, where Frank gives the summary of what happens tonight.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, he'll sit there and he'll say, they talked about this.
Sure.
Talked about this, right? The same thing could happen at your meetings, right? Frank's at our meetings too. You can have an agenda item on your meetings that says updates from the finance committee. You can say, finance committee last
This
Tuesday
is-
talked about.
so
XYZ."
just to point
I'm
out
happy
to you-
come in, but given that it's tough for me to come in on Mondays.
I understand that, but I mean, I think, I can't remember the last time we've had a FinCom member come to one of our meetings to be able to address or to talk about any of those topics. And that's sort of the part of the thing, is it's sort of like we're putting the onus on those particular, those moments when I think there needs to be a more formalized relationship that we can establish. Not doing it tonight. I'm just sort of I'm just saying it out loud, because I think what we need to be able to do is to figure out how to address these issues so that we're not doing it at town meeting floor. Because that's not fair to you, it's not fair to me, and it's not fair to the residents.
Right, and look, I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever. I'm just saying that in the same way that I make sure that my committee gets updates on what happens at your meetings,
Mhm.
you could do the same. You could have something where, as I said, Frank is the glue here. He's at both meetings, right? He could easily give you a 2-minute update or a 5-minute update like he does on our meetings every week, saying FinCom talked about X, Y, and Z. And then if you have issues, then we you can raise them to him, and he can communicate with us and say, let's get together and talk about it. I mean, you and I can always talk, but I'm saying, do you
Sure.
want to have more?
I think
communication.
we need to have more formal, like, committee level conversations at some point. And I think we need to figure out how that works. I don't know what it is tonight. We're not figuring it out tonight. I'm just saying that out loud.
I mean, remember in the old days, we had a liaison that would come to your meetings, and you had a liaison that would come to ours, and that was replaced by the town manager.
And
So that's why I said, if that's the model, then Frank is the guy who should be.
Liaisons are they're sharing information, they're not making decisions, and we need to have a way to be able to resolve some of these things and have real negotiations between two boards.
Hey, as I said.
We'll figure it
know
out.
where to find
We'll
me,
figure,
so.
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out at some particular point. But I know you gotta go, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hopefully, one of us will be able to make it tomorrow night. I really apologize. If not, I will make sure that we get some, statements or any responses to some of the
Well, as I
things you
said,
brought
if you
forward.
have any, you know where these issues are now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you guys have any feedback from tonight,
We
feel
will-
free to
we'll-
communicate it.
we'll
Make sure it gets to
communicate
us
that, so.
before tomorrow.
Thank you, Ken. Really appreciate it.
Yep, no
Have a
problem.
wonderful evening.
Yep,
Thank
you too.
We'll give Ken a moment to head out. Matt, welcome. All right, so now moving on, we're gonna get started with our agenda this evening. So we're gonna start off with Weston and Sampson to start discussing. We have a presentation about the potential DPW project. So you wanna come on up, gentlemen, and then just introduce yourselves so people
Thank you.
who have not been paying attention know who's here, and we can get started. And does Frank have the presentation to use, or
I do.
are you driving? Okay.
I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, we'll just make sure, like, while you're introducing,
Leaving you, David.
yeah, that hopefully Dave has his,
Okay.
Dave Steves has
Okay.
permission to share his screen for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm David Steves, project architect with Weston and Sampson for the DPW project. And with me tonight is Alex Francisco, our project manager. So we have a very brief presentation. It's just an update on where we are in the process and what's happened to date. And let me jump right in. So I will share my screen. Okay. I think we're good to go.
Great.
All right, so thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, we want to turn
So we're
the,
just gonna turn
just
the
to make sure that the
monitor.
people in
Oh,
the
sure.
audience, 'cause I think some of them are here to talk about this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, presentation, thank you.
Oh, oh, yeah, from the remote. Don't break it.
All right, so here we are for the 63 Arch Street site for the Consolidated Public Works Project. Just a quick outline of the agenda, which is, we have just recently submitted the schematic design submission several weeks ago. And it was pencils down for us to give those documents to our independent cost estimator, who put together an associated cost for the project. I would like to go through some, the status of the design, but also some design updates since the end of schematic design, as the design has progressed since then over the last few weeks. And then just touch on the summary of costs and then next steps. So here's our schematic design submission. This is the cover, and you can see the facility at the top. And what it is comprised of essentially is a very actually comprehensive set of documents. So we had a number of reports. We did some significant site investigation, including the soil characterization and sampling and testing, geotechnical test pits and borings, hazardous material investigation in the building, and I won't go through all these, but you know, the hydrant flow test, et cetera, just to do our due diligence of what's going on at the site. Also, a full schematic set of drawings of the civil, full architectural set and industrial equipment set of drawings, and then narratives for our design, all of our design disciplines, from civil, structural, HVAC, mechanical, et cetera. All those were assembled and put together, and we have that cost estimate, which we'll review tonight as well. So just to quickly touch on, for an example, this is the cover of the geotechnical report. You can see the existing outline of the existing site, which is the highway barn garage. And we had done an overlay of borings, where you can see in red bullet points, as well as test pits, and the town facilitated that by helping us out with an excavator and operator to get 6 test pits done, as well as 6 borings throughout the site. We did an overlay of the existing, of the proposed facility, to make sure that we had some test data for the subsurface conditions where the buildings were to be located. And that was put together in a comprehensive report, and this is just an example that identifies the subsurface strata conditions. And it's actually all very good information that we received, which was that there's no ledge or oversized cobbles or boulders that would need to be removed. It's essentially removal of existing fill down to either native or to a depth where we can just put in structural leveling fill, and then typical 4-foot depth spread footing. So not deep foundations, piles, or wraps, rammed aggregate pier type foundations. So that was very good. Also, just want to mention quickly on the soil investigation, we did have one identifiable reportable condition, but it was very minor within the footprint of the building, actually, that we are planning to remediate prior to construction. But the news was very good, actually, on what we could have anticipated to be somewhat hazardous conditions in the soil.
And I'll speak on that, Frank. We'll have a memo out regarding that very soon, within a week or so.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. So this is the schematic design site plan that was put together a couple of weeks ago. And subsequent to that submission, the town, James Keast, as well as DPW staff, had met with the abutters to address some of the concerns with the neighboring abutters on the project. So one was the, you can see highlighted there, is the proposed storage canopy at the southern edge of the site, which was too kind of visually prominent in the neighbor's perspective. Another,
Hey, David, sorry.
Yep,
just-
please.
Sorry, not to, and you're on a roll, but would you mind just, sort of, just for points of reference, like where is Arch Street, where is the rail trail,
of course, Frank.
that type of thing?
Yes. So Arch Street is at the page bottom. You can see, does my pointer show up on the?
It's the-
Okay. So Arch Street comes down, and this is near, from this intersection is the existing entrance to the existing Public Works. So this is Arch Street at bottom page. The rail trail is at top page. And so we're right in between those two
Thank you.
as data points. Okay, so we're talking about the canopy, which was very prominent. It's 150 feet in length. There's a significant amount of equipment that needs to be protected and stored for an adequate facility. Another one of the issues that was raised was in the parking area. You can see at the lower side, and we had talked about it before, is that we considered that to be used for the employee, staff, and public parking. One of the concerns was that that's a significant loss of the green space and some existing blueberry bushes that are there and the natural terrain area. The other concern was some visual screening to the other adjacent abutter on the northern side, where the operation in the salt shed and during a storm event, the site was open to that operation. So I'd like to just run through, so that was the schematic design site plan that was issued a couple of weeks ago, but since then we've updated the design to mitigate some of those concerns, which is, one, here is a reconfigured open storage canopy structure, which is slid towards the rail trail, so westerly on the site. And that area, to those two squares below the canopy, you can see is a relocated material storage bins. So those are lower. They still provide some screening for sound and visual, because it is a bit of a balance that you don't want to be open to a public works operation, but you don't want to also have structures, right in your face. So having the smaller structures there work well with the site configuration, and you can see the natural terrain works such that the new location of the canopy is really tucked behind a natural berm and some mature trees in that location. You can also see on the lower right-hand corner of the site where we had reconfigured the parking area and reduced the parking significantly for the DPW, but we mitigated that by locating some parking, some direct pull-in parking directly in front of the administration portion of the building. So we're able to buy back a few of the spaces. So we still have adequate number of spaces for the DPW operation. And the last thing we're looking is for a continuous stockade fence continuously along that adjacent property line to the abutter to screen and shield the noise and sound and the sight lines from the DPW. So you can see this is not a trick quiz, but they look identical, but I'm going to identify some of the differences. It's the old one on top and the revised configuration on the bottom. So the new site plan is in the lower site, and you can see there the revised canopy, for instance, the updated parking and added green space for a potential playground, and then the added fencing along the property line. So here's the design of the proposed DPW building, and there are 6 main components. There's a town-wide fueling, the vehicle and equipment storage garage. There's the main entrance being identified there. You have a 2-story administration building wing that has the water services offices, town SCADA, town engineer that's anticipated, employee support spaces, locker rooms, muster room training, and customer service and public lobby. Here, number 4 is the water and highway shop and all the support facilities for the water shop, vehicle and equipment maintenance garage, and at the end, a drive-through vehicle and equipment wash bay. So here's the schematic design that's proposed. You can see this is a bird's eye view of the massing of the revised site and layout. So just wanted to now kind of jump to the building and just quickly go through some of, working with the DPW, some of the changes we've made, which are kind of critical to the design, but as we hone in on the final design here, very important to where we are. So the first thing is, in the vehicle maintenance, we had deleted a bay to shrink that drive-through, deleting that drive-through maintenance bay to reduce the space of the overall facility. We had reconfigured some of the shop spaces and moved them around and flipped these support spaces, the water lab and material storage for the high-value equipment and materials, to the other side of the shop to back up to the mezzanine to make the mezzanines more consistent. We also added a single-user public toilet room off of the public lobby for public's use, as well as town employees that are stopping there to fuel. So there's a restroom to use. And one of the major revisions is we deleted the fire apparatus storage bay for that apparatus to be housed here in this vehicle storage garage. The impact actually was quite significant to the material storage for the facility. And so that has been eliminated along with the garage door. And I'll just touch on that quickly. So we had gone through a comprehensive coordination effort with the town, going through several site visits of getting all of their equipment documented, measured, photographed, gone through to know what type of equipment they have, the size of all the equipment, where it is available for use and efficiently located on site, as well as a graphic layout of what we use as a planning tool for the layout of the facility. So I just wanted to show this quickly, and all those pieces come together to show how we're utilizing the space in the building. It's not just a big building. You can see it's using essentially every square inch of space available. You can see in the equipment on the left, the outdoor open canopy vehicle and equipment storage. We're double stacking things in those storage bays and putting them in there very efficiently and effectively storing them. You can see we're also storing in the upper right-hand corner, adjacent to the salt shed, for the sander bodies that are going to be stored along adjacent to the salt shed. Also in the vehicle storage garage, you can see the angled parking with the center drive aisles, so for very efficient operations where the DPW can pull out any piece of equipment or vehicle without jockeying or moving others out of the way, for the most part. One important thing here is the DPW wanted to store all the plow blades adjacent to the trucks, which is very efficient operationally, and so we're providing that room for that to happen, and also utilizing that space where the fire apparatus had been stored for equipment storage. One last point, we also are using space in the building. So you can see here, for instance, on the left side of the building, we're storing 2 large pieces of equipment in the wash bay. That's, a little bit of inefficient for operation, but we're, again, using all square feet, all the available square feet that we can. Also storing 1 vehicle in a maintenance bay, as well as 2 pickup trucks in the water shop. So this is the updated plan. It looks the same at a glance, but it's actually very different. This is a smaller maintenance with the drive-through now, dropping something off on a wrecker with the drive-through bay enters into the vehicle storage garage. The reconfigured shop, you can see the consolidated support spaces together. Now you can imagine the mezzanine is now consistent and cohesive above that space. We incorporated the single-user toilet, and then the updated garage bay. So this is a view from the driveway entrance for the proposed new facility. I'd like to jump into the cost. So along with that schematic design, our independent cost estimator put together a comprehensive design estimate for a consolidated facility here at 63 Arch. The total square footage was 40,375 square feet, as it ended up essentially on target to where we were. This will also includes a town-wide fueling facility, the salt shed with attached brine tanks and canopy coverage to protect those tanks, and the on-site equipment storage canopy that we've talked about, as well as a continuous modular block retaining wall along, and we can talk about that a little bit if you'd like, but we incorporated that wall to make the viable footprint area of the site amenable to house the total operation of the new facility. So that's required. You can see the snippet of the detail of the plan, just to show the level of design that was developed to this point to really hone in on what the actual costs are. We had all wall types identified, fire-rated walls, all assemblies. You can see all the equipment laid out within those industrial spaces. Doors, windows, finishes, all identified for the schematic design cost estimate. So, cutting to the cost. Here we are at 63 Arch Street, the consolidated facility. This is the breakdown of the costs as summarized by our estimator. He's put it together. About $9.5 million for site costs, which is significant. Fuel island, salt shed, and the canopy, each about $1.25 to $1.5 million. And then the DPW building itself, about $25.5 million, for a total direct construction cost of the facility and site of $38.8 million, almost $38.9 million. Along with that, we've often talked about, and we're continuing to carry the updated soft costs for the project. And I've outlined some of the larger items that are included in the soft costs. It includes a 6% construction contingency, which is $2.25 million. But it includes A&E fees, construction administration, the OPM fees, and miscellaneous owner's costs, temporary facilities, tests and inspections, legal fees, moving costs, etc. We are very comprehensive in capturing all the costs because we don't want to be caught short once we're into the project, make sure we have enough to complete the project. So that results in so it's about $9.8 million of anticipated soft costs. So for an estimated total project costs of $48.75 million. And just to touch on how that compares to what we've presented in the past, we had at our last go-around put together a range because our estimates are based on historic prices, where now our independent cost estimator is based on actual costs from what is happening in the industry right now. So we have historic prices that we extrapolate out, so there's a little bit of escalation guesswork that we came up with, a low range and a high range within that estimated guesswork. And the low range was $47.75 million roughly, to a high range of $49.75 million. And as it would work out, we have the schematic design independent estimate came in right in between. So it's $48.75 million. Anticipating that we have the previously allocated project funding of $6.5 million, it leaves a total remaining estimated project cost of $42.25 million. Sorry about that. Just the quick outline of where we are. This whole process is really essentially 4 phases from the feasibility study to the site selection, which are passed, you can see in gray and green respectively, to the design of the facility, and then construction we're anticipating. So we're about halfway through design right now. We're right here, anticipating May town meeting to go for funding for the approval of the project. And the next steps, that's the May 2026 town meeting. We will be finalizing the design with an anticipated go out for bid in November of this year. And once the project gets awarded after bidding, we can anticipate an 18 to 20-month duration of construction. That's my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, we have, we're gonna have some board questions, and then, I think, I imagine there's gonna be some questions from the room, so we'll probably
Okay.
open this up a little bit to allow people to, ask other questions.
Great.
Obviously, this is the first time that we're seeing all this information, so we're trying to process it a little bit here, too.
Yep.
I'm.
Quite all right. It's, the schematic design was formally submitted a week ago, so it's kind of hot off the press, so not
Excellent.
understood.
One question I have is, could you go into a little bit more detail about the 9.5 million for the site
Yeah.
development costs? I mean, does that include the retaining wall? Like, what goes into that
Yes.
particular cost are we talking
Okay,
about here?
so there's a significant amount of site regrading to make a level pad area. So it's site regrading, which is the removal of the berm and the high portion of the site at the southern end of the site. The retaining wall excavation and soil disposal is included there. The retaining wall itself and the construction of that, as well as some, I didn't point it out, but it also includes some smaller retaining walls on the downslope side, because as you know, we're kind of carving a shelf out of a sloped hill. It includes the building foundations, as well as all the subsurface upgrades of catch basins.
Is that like demolition being there too?
In the site, I don't believe so. I am not sure about that, Ben.
Okay.
And there's a full breakdown in the cost estimate that was shared, if you ever wanna get really into the details of each specific item that we
Okay.
looked at as well.
And then, one other question that I have, I'm sure these two will have some questions. I mean, there's more questions, but I'm just trying to
Sure,
process
sure.
everything, so.
Yep.
We talked about there was a minor soil condition. I mean, I don't need you to get like super detailed in that, but could you just sort of talk about a little bit of like what that is or what's going on there? Is it like,
Yep.
is it something, is it contained? Is it something, like what kind of, what are we talking about here?
It is just above reportable conditions, so it's actually very minor.
Okay.
But it is above reportable conditions, so we need to address it.
Sure.
It was located in the highway garage, so as we removed some of the floor slab. And so we're expecting now to remove it, remediate it. We expect it to be, because we took a lot of samples, that is very localized and contained. So we're going to cut a hole in the slab, or we're going to propose to the town that we do that.
Right, basically big enough for backhoe to get in there, take out what we need,
Okay.
maybe 4x4 or 5x5, something like that.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm gonna open it up to the board now. Tina, do you have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a couple, actually. So the culvert repair that's underway now, that was originally a part of site prep when we were considering 63 Arch Street, understanding that that work would need to be done for this to be a viable site.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement, yes
Okay.
it is, yep.
All right. And then when you talked about not finding ledge, not finding boulders, when you talked about the barely noticeable or barely reportable but reportable one release, good news that there wasn't more, those have already impacted the project costs that you've put up on the board. You wouldn't, because this is a week old.
Yes.
So we're not going to further refine some of those contingency costs or some of those project costs based on that newish information. Those are already captured in here?
Those are already captured,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. And then, could you put the timeline back up if you would?
One thing would offer on the contingency, we do have a design contingency in here that will reduce as we advance the design. So we expect that will compensate some of the costs that are currently being carried, if that makes sense.
Yes, okay. On this timeline, where are there moments or points where you'll seek additional resident feedback? Are they on this timeline, or would you say you're at the end of resident feedback in terms of design? Because the design is still a somewhat iterative process. There'll be
Yep.
changes and updates as you go along. So could you just speak to when residents, abutters, might have the opportunity to provide input or feedback?
The design is not anticipated to have whole-scale changes at this point. They're actually very minor, and there'll be changes, but as I would refer to them as tweaks at
Okay.
this point. Because the town and DPW and James has met with the abutters, so I don't know if we're anticipating any further.
Okay,
I think they may continue a conversation,
Okay.
and our, design process is always, accommodating to any discussion, but there's nothing on the books
okay.
right now.
Okay. And then how about moments for cost updates, either to this board or
Yep.
through the facilities manager and the town manager to this board? So could you just talk to that on the timeline, when the board will be receiving anticipated
Sure.
updates?
We have two
Yes.
costs, go ahead, Alex.
Exactly, so the design development is the next phase.
Okay,
We should have our design development cost estimate
Okay.
by, I wanna say, early fall, so let's say end of September, October-ish. And then we'll have construction documents cost estimate in November,
Yeah.
and we'll share that with the committee.
okay. Thank you. I might have another question, but I'm okay for now, thanks.
Okay. Damon?
Covered one of mine. I'm curious about the adjustment to the visual separation layer that you've put between the facility potentially and the abutting residencies, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit more about that and just kind of like what the changes were, fiscal impact, and what the nature of the separation is? I'm sure there are people here who'd be curious who maybe didn't hear all of it or didn't
Yep.
catch the drift.
Okay, so there are two separations. One is on the southern end of the site where we have, which is one of the reasons why it was placed there, is the open canopy structure. So I can speak a little bit more in
Wanna
deep.
scroll to the-
I can scroll to that, sure.
Probably easier to-
Yes. So you can kind of see it here because those updates have been incorporated into this. Okay, so you can see that the canopy, well, one, it was lowered. It was higher than this, and so that's still one of the fine-tuning things we're coordinating, knowing all the equipment, make sure it fits. So we're not hitting the structure, but we're gonna make it as low as we can. We have shifted that over 10 to 15 feet or thereabouts towards the rail trail. The natural terrain, and I'm looking at the kind of the Page North area, far end of the site. The natural terrain continues up, because this, we're actually carving out a shelf into the side of this hill, so the hill continues up past the canopy. So, for the predominant length of it, it'll be covered by the natural terrain of the berm, mature trees. We are also considering some infill landscaping or arborvitaes or things that can add a natural screen in front onto the backside of the canopy. Adjacent to that, we have the lower material storage bins, which will just be surrounded by a fence and some natural landscaping. On the other side, the fencing that we're talking about is not shown in this rendering, but I can go to you can see, essentially, I guess, here would be
Yeah,
the.
that's okay.
So that fence, we're looking at an 8-foot-high stockade fence.
I
So
see.
it's a wood, natural, will weather, will become very, much part of the landscape. And that's what we had talked about with the DPW, they thought was most appropriate.
Yeah, excellent. Just wanted to make sure that people had a chance to see it. And would you mind pointing out on the map here, just so
Yeah,
people?
so that fencing extends from the far edge of the new configured parking area. So it cuts across in between the parking area and the retained open space, green space, and runs along the abutting parcel to the backside and hooks all the way around to the far corner of the DPW site.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
That's all for me, Mr. Chair.
Okay. One other question. So you mentioned that there's like a design estimate, like you're doing, there's further design that's going
It'll be
through?
more refined as we go. So the next phase, right now, we just completed the schematic design.
Okay,
The next phase after town meeting would be design development, honing in on further details of the building. So it's just a more refined design package with specifications, and our independent cost estimator will take those documents and he'll refine his cost estimate.
so I guess then, so like, you know, some people were talking about things like, it might have been you who said it was like value engineering and things like that. Are we looking at like, are there things like that taking place in that particular phase, or we're saying like, you know, this is the right elements to use, or have we kind of gotten past that?
No, we haven't gotten past that,
No.
not at all. One of the things is that we have on systems, like the mechanical system and the structural system, those are all like narratives right now.
Right.
So all of that information is gonna become drawings, so it's gonna become real sizes of steel, you know, and the mechanicals, so,
Electrical system.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it will all become very tangible.
Okay.
And that's, you know, a design review process that's continuous.
Sure.
With, you know, cost efficiency,
Right.
making things operationally, and also meeting the energy goals of the town that they've set.
And, you know, we also talked about potential escalators. Like, what is the assumption that we're using as an escalator for the project? Like, is it, I think we had talked about, like, I think it was like 5% previously, or is it, if I
Well,
remember
that
correctly?
was, yeah, we had, which was Weston and Sampson.
Yes.
Our independent cost estimator kind of bakes in escalation, into his number.
Okay.
So it's really, it's more, he doesn't pull it out as a line item like we do, because our information is years old. So
Right.
we have to say, well, in 25, it would have added this much, and 26 adds this much, and 20.
Right.
So his is baked in, but escalated out to the fourth quarter of 26, to bid.
Okay.
So
I-
you won't see a line item that specifies that, but it is included.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then, I think, last question, and then I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna
No,
open it up
not at all.
because I think there might be some questions for the public. I had
Sure.
seen a couple, come in through the chat. I just lost my last question, but I was trying to answer that. Did you have?
I'm still working on it. I will have
Okay.
another question.
I probably will have another question, but what
Lot
I'll
of
do is
information to
I'll
process.
open it up while I forget my question. It's it's the evening. It's not even 9 o'clock yet. I'm already forgetting things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of see if people have questions.
Sure.
There's been a couple in the chat, but I'll kind of go from the room to the chat, etc. Would it, if possible, Frank, if you could move your microphone over there, so if there's somebody in the room who wants questions, they have like a space to attend, and then we can bring a chair up and something like that. Yeah. Just to make sure that we can do that. And then anyone who has questions or comments, if you could just make sure you just give us your name and address for the record, so we can have that. So I'll start in the room. Does anyone here in the room have any questions or comments at this time? And also, there will be, you know, certainly emails and things like that. So if you think of something later, we can certainly get you an answer with this particular. So come on up. Just give us your name and address and your question or comment.
My name is Laura Gaudet. I live at 92 Arch Street.
Hi, Laura.
So the culvert is at the base of my driveway, just to give you a location.
Gotcha.
And my concern, well, I have a concern about what will the bulk of the building appear when you're in the neighborhood? Because right now, I don't look out and see a giant building. Will I look out and see a giant building?
You will see a two-story building?
I will see it,
You will see it, sure.
because right now it's very screened by trees and I don't see anything,
Well,
hardly.
What was your address, Laura, again?
92 Arch.
92 Arch.
I'm at the culvert that's being repaired.
We are maintaining the existing kind of siting of
Okay,
where the existing buildings are located. So
Okay.
the siting of the building will be very similar.
okay,
So there are not, in the foreground to the facility, there are not mature trees that are being removed.
okay,
But it is a two-story building.
yep,
It will be amenable and fit into the scale and size of the neighborhood.
okay.
Yeah.
And the new parking lot, which is my major concern,
Okay.
how many spaces is it?
It has been reduced to 23 spaces.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes me feel much better. At what point in the discussion did it become a public parking lot? And my concern there is because people will park for the rail trail. And unless you can point out to me where the entrance through the rail trail will be without being through people's yards, which, you know, right now, if I enter the rail trail, I am going through Chris's yard. Chris is very nice because it's just a few people who walk up and, you know, but that's not what it'll be. If that's a public parking lot, that will be people trucking their bikes and their carriages and their kids and, you know. When did that happen?
Okay, when I say for the public and staff parking, that is for public that are visiting the public works.
You know, like when
Okay.
you go get your sand, and you
Yeah.
drive up and you park and you run in to get your sand?
So
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
actually a very low use, maybe one, maybe two people a day, but,
Right.
or less.
Right,
no
and
pl-
that's what it is now, I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
it's non-existent. But my fear was that if you were suddenly going to put a 45-space parking lot,
People would fill it.
Yeah.
people would fill it.
I got you.
Build it and they will come.
I think one of the
Okay.
things we've talked about is gating it during non-business hours, so that it wouldn't become like a, because I think we've heard similar concerns about this, access to Lake Winthrop too, so, you know, just parking there, not having to pay the sticker, or show your sticker, and then walking down to the,
Yep,
Yeah.
to the lake via Pleasure Point. So we've
Yes.
talked about, you know, hopefully that being a simple fix.
And one other thing too is that we're talking about like sort of cutting it in almost like a shelf. Wouldn't that kind of look lowered a little bit from where the current footprint is? If I'm thinking about it correctly?
You are thinking about it correctly.
So that might impact, so, you know, to your point about like what is the sight lines gonna be, if it's lowered a little bit, even though it might be a taller building, it might kind of look similar in the sense that like you're not gonna see like driveway going up, you might see something flat, but the building
Yeah.
there. So it might
yeah,
kind of give you a similar look, if I'm thinking about it the right way,
yeah.
that's what it
I mean,
sounds
we
like.
have the mills in the neighborhood,
Yeah,
so that's sort of big
Yeah.
industrial space, but I don't know. This is different.
it's a
This is-
change,
could be
it's certainly true.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
When we just like pull from the chat, there was a chat
Yep.
question, if you could, if you have it.
We've got a few, okay, so,
One was-
I think we may have just hit this one already from 89 Arch. Why is there proposed public parking? Is it for the public access to the building? We have never had public parking at the DPW, so I think we covered that, but Laura, if not, feel free to chime in.
And with that, there's no intent to place a blue public parking sign at this
Yeah.
location?
No.
It wouldn't be labeled
No,
as such?
it's-
Okay, we have that on Exchange Street
Oh,
for rail trail access, but there wouldn't be parking
Parking
signage
would be
here.
designated for the DPW.
Right,
this
okay.
is strictly DPW use.
Public in the sense that it would be people who are doing, from the public doing
Right.
business at the DPW, as
Exactly.
opposed to somebody who would just park there for other
Correct.
purposes.
Exactly.
So one other from Carol Selkind, will there be anything in place to block the view of the fuel tanks from Arch Street?
Well, the fencing that we talked about, which is really continuous.
Can you point out where the
I-
fuel
I
tank
will,
is,
sure.
just so we can kind of get that
Yeah,
sense?
that's a good idea. Thanks, Ben.
I think it's, yeah, so
Right
it's
here.
right there, and then the
Yeah.
red lines
And-
there are
and
gonna be
so
the fencing, the
This is the
8-foot
limit
fencing.
of the fencing that surrounds the parking.
So they might be able to see maybe the canopy, but it's not gonna be the entire,
So those are the tanks, and they're surrounded by a fence,
yeah,
as well as the property line fencing.
okay,
The canopy is over here, adjacent to the building.
okay. I meant a canopy in the sense, that's the fuel canopy, is
This is
there?
the fuel canopy.
Oh, so it's by the building anyway, so,
Yeah, it's-
okay,
About a 14-foot high
okay,
canopy.
but it's part of the building anyway, so.
Right.
Okay. In the room, anybody else in the room have any questions or comments at this time? Sure, come on up. The woman behind you, actually.
Claire.
Yeah. Or, you can battle it out, it's fine.
Charlie Roberts, 65 Art Street. So more to kind of to your point we were saying about how it's going to look. I mean, at the end of the day, we understand it's been there for a long time. We bought houses next to the DPW, got that. But it is a it is a residential area. It is an industrial use, as I mentioned in my email. From that, it fits in a lot better now. Like, I understand it's not in great shape, but I get that. But to your point, I disagree that, you've got some green space out front, you've got trees out front, you've got the bushes there that kind of blend it in, you've got the big open green space, next to that. And then the same thing as you go down, there's a lot of trees, and the same thing with our natural buffer on the outside from that. It's a smaller one-story building, and from that, now we're putting a much bigger, higher building in, and we're stripping a lot of that stuff away on all the side around. My understanding and the town obviously looked at a lot of options, as everybody here knows, ad nauseum over many, many years, and the town voted to end up back here, but with the understanding, or there needed to be the realization that this wasn't a great spot for DPW to start with, right? We're at the bottom of a residential neighborhood. The trucks, the way they have to come in and out, are going past multiple residents. You've obviously got the issue with the culvert we're dealing with, from that. And so, this is, it's not going to be great. I know we've made some compromises, from that. Obviously, we can talk about the cost completely, separately from that. But we've now got this massive industrial building. Like, if this was being done privately, everyone would be laughed away from the table, right? If I owned that and I had my landscaping business there, and I came to the town and said, hey, I want to do this, my business is taking off, you'd kick me out, I think I'm right. I mean, it's, so, we need to, as a town, hold ourselves to similar standards, from that. Just because it's a town and town-owned land, does that mean we can treat it differently than we would, someone as a private business? So that's I have other concerns that we can talk about, and, natural, canopy and stuff that's, going to be taken down or not. And obviously there's personal issues, as, obviously as having about 900 linear feet of abutting the property, from that it's, fairly significant impact to me, But as I said, I bought the house there 15 years ago. I knew the DPW, and we like the DPW as a neighbor. Like, that's, I'm not against the DPW. I leave for work, and then I come back, and they're not there. They're not noisy. The one issue I do have when you talk about that, with that buffer that was being removed and maybe slowly coming back, but it's like now, just talking personally, the building was there, and it acted as a buffer. Everything came in and out of the building on that side, and access was on that side. Now everything is being directed at my house. So everything has to go through the building, come out, adjacent to where we live. And so now we got at night, or during storms and everything else like that, we've got the lights and everything else coming from that. We've now got every single truck that's coming in and out of the DPW is coming out down that end, whereas before, everything was down at the other end, from that. And that's why it's so important to have that, with this industrial use, to try and have that, keep that natural, vegetation and natural berm in there. And, I know you said it's sloping up, but when you look at the grade in there, it is similar to what you have shown on the topo, but it fills out, then there's a lot of dips, and it's kind of a bit of a weird area, and then as it flows down, to the side, it's the same thing. It's completely exposed in the end there as all the vehicles, come around, from that. So I think there's a little bit more of an effort that I would hope we could see, and I have some ideas, and from that happy to share offline. But I think the biggest thing is, this large, expensive building that we're trying to put back on a site that really isn't designed for both water, and highway, from that. It's always going to be a struggle and a fight to try and get everything in there. So people just have to have the understanding and realization we can't have everything that we want, because if we'd gone to Cross Street, and I know we're not going there, we could have had everything we wanted, right? And we could have had a much bigger site, but, this is just one of the compromises we have to make, in addition to budget, and understanding what the budget is. It's a massive project. It's a massive cost. I mean, you know, when it's trying to put up a similar building, you know, in New Jersey right now, the costs, you know, are not this extreme, you know, from that. And maybe we need to re-look at how that building looks. You know, it's quite segmented, and, you know, there could be maybe slightly less expensive ways to look at that, you know, from it, and how that could be fitted out. But it is, and obviously this is the, you know, I've heard from in town, I know you guys have heard from in town, just the cost is incredibly expensive for what it is. And again, just the size of it, on the size a lot, in the location it is, it just doesn't seem to jive too much.
I don't want to assume your intent with your comments. I think I understand you asking to remain engaged with the design process.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
How, has it been going okay to this point? Do you find that you are being heard with what you'd like to share, and you're being able to communicate your concerns and get feedback on what you're asking about? Has it been going okay? I definitely think I hear you say, we want that to continue, but is there things the town can be doing differently?
No, I think it's been good. James reached out, you know, and Robert reached out, you know, from that, you know, before, you know, it'll be, you know, again, we're just seeing everything for the first time, you know, like you guys are, you know, from that, so it's hard to kind of bring any constructive, you know, comments or feedback when we're just seeing it for the first time, which
Sure.
makes it a bit more challenging. But, you know, like we've done in the past, we'll, you know, can put those in writing, so everyone can see that.
Yeah.
You know, from that.
Okay.
But no, I think it's been, you know, as far as the town process goes, I think it's been, from my perspective, I'm not talking for anyone else, it's been okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. I'm just gonna open it up. Does anyone on the Zoom have any comments at this time?
Yes, so we'll have a couple. We talked about the fuel tanks. Jordan Cannon is asking, will this be hard bid via Chapter 149, or will it be where a construction manager be brought on board for the portion of the pre-construction and estimating under Chapter 149A? I'm assuming that we haven't made any formal decisions on that yet, Jordan, but happy to keep you posted on that.
Okay.
Another one, do you want to take another Zoom one?
Sure.
In regards to the estimate, this one, I think David and Alex, you might be able to help on this one. In regards to the cost estimate, what other projects were used in reference, or for reference, rather?
Our most recently bid projects were
Tewksbury, DPW.
Duxbury,
Duxbury,
Bill Ricca.
yep, Billerica.
Those are a couple recently large projects that were bid in 24, 25.
Yeah.
And that would have been, like, the reference would have been cost per square foot, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, right.
Ginny, I'm gonna skip one of yours to get to the other cost-related question, then I'll jump back to the other ones. The 6% construction contingency is very low at the schematic design phase. Are you concerned that you should have a more typical 25% to 30% construction contingency at this phase?
No, actually. We think we're in good shape on the construction contingency. We've done, you know, the thorough site investigation. We're not, I mean, you can never say for sure there won't be surprises, but we feel that that has us covered in case of something unknown is uncovered.
Okay.
Why don't we finish
So-
with her questions, and then I'm gonna see if anyone else in the room, because I know that, I think there was a hand raised earlier.
Oh, sure, okay. At this point, have you thought about stormwater management and treatment yet with the wetlands nearby? Any stormwater or green infrastructure planned at this point?
Yes, we have full site drainage, grading and drainage plans. We do have those in the schematic design submission package, so, and there are catch basins and water catching, controlling, and drainage.
So just refer to the civil narrative in the drawings. There's a lot of good details in there to answer any
Okay.
stormwater questions.
And can you, sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
Is there any map that we have that will show the 50 and 100-foot buffer lines from the wetland to the site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right,
Yep,
we'll just make
those
sure,
are in-
because I just want to, because
in
I
the
think we'll
plans.
probably get a, because this will, it's, if memory serves, this will definitely trigger some form of Conservation Commission review, just because of
yes.
the proximity of the wetlands, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're getting a couple questions about that, so I just want to answer those before, to get ahead of those.
Okay.
But I know there was
Yeah,
someone
is-
else in the room.
There's a
Yeah.
wetland delineation,
Yep.
sorry, there's a
That's good.
wetland delineation report at the beginning
Yep.
as well.
Welcome, thank you.
Hi, I'm Claire Tremblay, I'm at 47 Arch Street. I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on what Charlie talked about. A bunch of concerns are what he was saying before. So we bought in the neighborhood, the highway department was there. We don't make any bones about that. It's not like, surprise, wait a minute, we don't want the highway department there.
Right.
They have been good neighbors. But I think a lot of us who buy in that neighborhood knows that the highway department is there, but it is set back. It is one story. It's not a big part of the neighborhood. And now this isn't what we're seeing anymore, like 2 levels, a parking lot. It's now like, it feels like it's encroaching into the neighborhood. It doesn't, we all know it doesn't belong there, but it's there. That decision has been made. But I feel like we need to remember it's still a neighborhood. I mean, people live there. I live there. So on a personal note, yes, I'm the one that's living right next door. Now, I'm like, there's a fence going all over from the behind and the side and everywhere. The parking, I mean, it's better than what it was first shown to us, but it's still, I mean, my house is set back, so it's within like 15, 20 feet, or maybe less, of my garage and my house and all of it. So a couple questions is, one is, way back in the beginning, the very first plan that we saw, the parking was never there. Then all of a sudden, at the last meeting, that this came up, bam, there's a parking lot there. And I can gather that they wanted to do more and fit more, but what happened to the plan where the parking was back there? And do we need to have every single thing on the wish list, being ignorant of what a DPW needs? But do we have to have all of that stuff? And then push that, push into the neighborhood even more? Or is there something that, like, we don't, I mean, they were able to do the parking back there before, so I'm wondering, why can't that parking lot be back there? The public part of it, I understand that it's only for people visiting the DPW. I don't know that people are gonna not use it for everything else. I mean, it'll be gated on the weekends, but plenty of people go to the beach during the week, especially in the summertime. So that's a little bit of a concern. And the number of spaces. So I don't know if anyone here would know, like, how many employees are actually at the highway department? Do you know?
Yes, I do.
Do tell.
Yeah, 26.
Okay.
And so, it is 23 spaces in the front. We need to maintain a couple of, 2 accessible parking spaces that
Mhm.
are not used by everyday employees. And we moved 8 additional spaces up to the front of the building. So it does accommodate the need of the DPW, but there's not a lot of extra spaces built into that
Okay.
parking at this point.
It just feels like when I'm seeing things over there, I never see more than a dozen cars. So I don't know where all of a sudden there's 23 cars. I just never.
Water department too, because we're combining the highway and the water department.
Okay.
Claire, I think I hear you asking for ongoing consideration of the size of the parking lot.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a request that we can make,
Yeah.
that continue to be a design element that is reviewed with the neighbors, as direct abutting neighbors' concerns in mind. I think I also hear you saying that if there are trade-offs, you're asking the question, I think, why are we making a trade-off in favor of more parking? Could we make a trade-off in favor of less parking if there are trade-offs to be made?
Yes.
So I think I am asking that continue to be a consideration
Okay.
when you're working with DPW staff, town staff on choices where there are trade-offs, that we're remembering the neighbors, abutting neighbors' comments. I also heard from Charlie, and I think you brought it back up again, are maintaining natural buffers. I think that's always been the intent. You've always presented that as a really important component of design, but I definitely hear that as being critical to the view that you're having. I wholeheartedly agree. It is a residential neighborhood with an industrial purpose in it at that one site. And I think that's important that we remember, so I'm glad you're bringing these comments up.
And I would also say that, you know, this isn't gonna be, we're gonna make an attempt to have another conversation about this, so don't feel like you have to have all your questions and sort of like, you know, we wanna hear these kinds of comments and things like that, but we're gonna make an attempt to have another forum and an opportunity to really discuss this in much more detail, and then so people can digest it and sort of think about it a little bit. So this isn't gonna be the last touch point. There's gonna be more opportunities even just before May. So we're definitely gonna have more conversations about this, so we
Okay.
do appreciate it. And we'll, you know, absolutely, we're gonna, you know, looking at the parking, like, you know, is that the right number? Can it be reduced? Is there places that we can do? Could we add more green space, more trees, more canopy, things like that? I think that, you know, that's what we're hearing from you, so we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Janice, come on up.
Hi. Janice Miller, 208 Winthrop Street. I'm around the corner, not an immediate abutter. I had just a couple questions. Claire asked many of them, but also about visual screening along the rail trail. I walk the rail trail a lot. Right now, it's chain link fence, and now it's going to be bigger and probably noisier. I'm just wondering if, you know, there's going to be dense vegetation or visual screening there that would help for the rail trail side. But I would also say equally on the abutter side, you know, stockade fence is one thing, but, you know, arborvitae's, I think would also help. And particularly on that edge of the parking lot, if that were to stay, I think that having a visual barrier you know, people might not even know the parking is there, to mitigate some of the issues of people parking there when they shouldn't. So just a couple comments. Now, I have not been to some of the other DPW meetings, but I'm also wondering, with one of the other hats that I wear, about solar and heat pumps or geothermal. Is that a whole separate discussion?
No, that was a question I was working on in my mind, so I was going to ask it, so I'm glad you did. Thank you. Could you speak to the plans for the future plans for the DPW's use of solar, and please?
Sure. Well, you can see from this rendering that the vehicle storage garage has a very low-sloped, fairly flat, large roof, very amenable for a solar array, that it will be the structure will be sized to accommodate a solar array. It's not incorporated into this project, but the town can have, to choose to install a solar panel array at any point in the life of the project.
I think what we would probably do is to see if there's any opportunities to do so, like beyond the project. Like sometimes we have grants or opportunities to.
Yeah, we've worked on other projects
Yeah, to
that
try to do some of those things.
DPWs have, and towns have partnered with solar companies.
Yeah, we might be able to find an opportunity
yeah,
to do that.
it's very
even
common.
if it's not necessarily constructed directly in the project.
So the heating and cooling system wouldn't be included in the cost of what you're proposing?
Yes, it is, yeah. It would be air source heat pumps, is in the HVAC system. Very efficient, electric heat pumps, with gas backup, I believe.
Natural gas.
Oh, natural gas backup, yeah.
Thank you, yeah, I mean, it seems that this is a good time to think about solar as part of the whole
Oh,
package,
sure,
rather
sure.
than saying
Yep.
the town might pay for it, it's a big cost, and rebates aren't there like they used to be. That I would advocate to talk about that now rather than later. Just one other question. When I walk by the DPW now, there are quite a few cars that are parked on that east side that currently shows a green space. Is that not an opportunity for parking?
I think that's Mr.
Unless-
Char-
They're not my cars.
Just curious as to ways to make that parking lot
Always open to negotiation.
smaller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any others in the room? Yeah. Well, can you come up and, yeah, we need to be able to hear you. They need to be able to hear you on Zoom.
Anne Louise Hanstead, 8 Cassandra Lane. Just a quick question, and I apologize because I didn't have the opportunity to see the beginning of the presentation. Did you provide a cost breakdown
Yes.
about how you arrived at, and how detailed was the breakdown?
In this presentation, it wasn't thoroughly broken down, but we do have the thorough breakdown in a probably would take us hours to probably go through it all.
It was
but-
about 10 items. They broke down both the
Yeah.
contingency costs and then the building costs into about, probably, I think, 8 on one and 7 on another.
Okay.
So about 15
But
items.
there is a much more detailed breakdown that we can go through it another time.
Will you be distributing copies of this?
Yep.
And then can I get the more detailed breakdown?
Sure.
That'd be helpful. That was it. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
I just got one more comment on that.
Sure, just come on up.
Charlie Roberts, 65 Art Street. So just going back to the whole, the size of it and everything, from that, like, I don't think we need to lose sight. We still own the Central Street location from that. The DPW is a very seasonal operation from that, so it's not like we still have that ability to store stuff at that location that can be used, seasonally from it. So I'd say not to lose sight of that. Obviously somewhat, maybe biasly or selfishly, like it's like a large canopy out back might be
Yeah.
the same cost to be on that side as it is on that side, maybe even slightly less. And
Yeah.
so just being, just putting that out there that we're not losing that site. I don't think the town should be selling land. I think we need more land than we own for various different projects, potentially coming down the line from it. Same thing for trying to save as much cost as possible, because it's not going to be the first ask for a large building in town over the next,
Mhm.
decade or plus, from it. So just saying we're not losing that site or that ability. So I think there's still
Okay.
some opportunity to use that site for some of that stuff.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna, I know it's, there's other people that, other topics for this evening. And,
Okay.
what I would say is, we're gonna have another conversation about this. This is
Okay.
not the last time we're gonna talk about it.
All right.
So please don't feel like if you haven't been heard or your question isn't answered thoroughly, that there won't be other opportunities. And we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, so we can address that at that time. But I think for now, I think we can, if you can, you've sent the presentation to the town manager, so we
Yep.
have that information, and we can make sure that we get at least that part of the presentation onto the website, so people wanna look at it and review and things like that, and we can come up with,
Of course.
there's other questions and things like that. But thank you for all the work you're
Sure.
doing here and coming in and speaking to us and answering these questions, so we really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah,
And
terrific.
We will talk again very,
Nice
very
to
Good
see you.
input.
Thank you.
Yeah, good,
Thank you.
good to see you as well.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.
And thank you to everyone who came forward to ask questions, and there'll be more touch points, so please don't, if your questions weren't answered or you have more, we'll talk again. I'll give them a moment to head out.
Ben, if I could, do you mind if I just touch on something related before we switch
Yeah, and then we're
topics
gonna
entirely?
go to talk to the schools.
Yep. So I know the board is obviously very committed to being as transparent about this whole process as much as possible. We did have an update on, since I'm sure we will get lots of these questions come May 11th or maybe even before, we do have an update on the Cross Street location. The land court saga continues. However, we have been approached about pursuing what we think is one of the last stages of the land court process, which is the taking and foreclosure process. One thing that the tax title attorneys have advised us is that there is no time frame that they can give us by which, even if we said, you know, yes today, how long it would take for actually the parcel to come into the town's possession. So that's something we're still working on, but again, just in an effort to be as transparent as possible about the cross street location, that is where things stand as of
And we still,
as of
because
last
we
week.
haven't controlled that, we still don't even know what's in the ground there. We still don't know what the cleanup, we don't really know as much about that. We know
Yeah.
certainly where it is, but
Yeah, and
that
I
site has a lot of unknowns even going into this process.
right, but just wanted to, you know, make sure we're all on the same page about
Absolutely.
Cross Street.
Great.
Yep, no
Thank you.
problem.
Right, you guys want to, you want to bring up the, our friends from the schools to come on up to talk about a couple things? Whoever wants to come up to microphones, you are welcome.
Can we do this next week too?
You want to do this next week?
Yeah, we'll do this.
Well, next week is Marathon Monday, so we're not going to be here on Monday.
Do Tuesday, you guys.
We're not going to do Tuesday. Come on,
Oh.
we're actually going to try to have like a little bit of time off.
If I could get sharing.
Sure. So, similar to, just sort of, while you get, Dan gets sharing, to be able to talk a little bit about a couple things. I had requested, I had spoken to, the chair, Sarah, who's been very amenable and gracious in listening to me, and, we've been talking about a bunch of different topics, and I just felt like it would be a lot more, productive to just have, sort of come back and sort of have this conversation in this kind of a setting, because I think there's still a couple unknowns that we want to all feel comfortable with going into town meeting in May. We're closing the warrant tonight, that's the intention, so we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable, everybody's good, everything's okay. And to be able to understand, and I think, you know, the pieces that I'm sort of asking about was, we're talking about the 2.5 million for the feasibility, just kind of want to like go back to sort of, how do we get to 2.5 million? Can we just walk through that process? And then, similarly, like just going through your capital asks, you had presented, not the topics themselves, we understand like what you're asking for, but just to sort of say like, you know, is there flexibility here, things like that, to try to understand that. And then finally, we're just gonna talk about, a little bit about the funding to the, for the feasibility study, just to sort of say like where we are and, you know, sort of how we get to the next step. So I just thought it would be best to do it like this, to try to like have, you know, phone calls between individuals. I think that's not the best way to do it. So I thank you very much for coming in on a Monday evening. It's a beautiful night and you had to spend it with us, and I'm sorry.
So, we have a bunch of stuff for you tonight.
Oh, wonderful, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
But to go back, I mean, you know, from the very beginning, one of the things that I've been talking about is trying to come up with a cost estimate, trying to have a process.
Agreed.
We had a conversation, we agreed to run it through budget subcommittee.
Yep.
That's what we did. Dr. Jordan, Frank, James got together, looked at some comps, kind of did that analysis. It was
Sure.
a little bit more high level maybe than you know, sort of what you would put together, but it, you know, sort of painted a picture that 2.5 was the best number, or was
I sort of
a
the
reasonable
point,
number.
but the point I would also just point out to is that the MSBA is not, it's not very clear when you're looking at some of these things, like what that actually looks like.
The MSB is wonderful. We love them. They're great.
I know they're
not very
wonderful.
helpful with this.
Yes, but I want to make that, sort of
Yes.
put that to the picture that we're trying to iron something out with a little, like, kind of a hand tied behind our back.
And this is a number that is, I hate to say it because it's gonna probably come back to bite me, but it's not it's a squishy number. I mean, there's no, you know, numbers are all over the place. There's no, you know, easy way to kind of come up with it, but I think I've done a little bit of work to put even more numbers behind the numbers that you would put together.
Okay.
To demonstrate some trends, and
Okay.
we'll see what you think, and then we have a proposal for you.
Okay.
In addition to that I'm
Love it.
a little
Let's hear it.
hesitant with, but.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay, so,
Yep.
okay, so, nope, that's, I meant to move, we're actually gonna do something else first, and then we'll get to the proposal.
Yes.
So, I,
Oh, you're gonna have to zoom in on that.
Yeah.
No, you can see that.
No, you need to make it bigger.
I can't make it bigger.
Yeah. Dan, you know,
Well, Frank,
it's
could
pretty
you-
colors.
Frank, could you prep yours as well? I think it's probably captured here, but you had an Excel spreadsheet.
All right, well,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to go sit
Well,
over there.
yeah, it's a little bit,
There you go.
I don't have this same,
That's better. That's better.
sorry.
Okay.
You can just move it around, yeah.
That's readable?
Yeah.
All right, good,
Okay.
okay.
Get rid
All right,
of
here we
the,
go.
can you
All
get
right,
rid
so
of your?
Rather than just looking at things all together, this was actually, Dawn's idea was to kind of look at things over time and what I'm calling vintages. I like wine, so we'll call them vintages.
Okay.
And so we went back where I went back in time. This is not easy information to necessarily gather. I went through a lot of warrants, a lot of different meeting minutes. I mean, it's sometimes there were news reports, and it was easy. Regardless, taking your cost per pupil type of number, which has its pluses and minuses, because large buildings tend to have lower cost per pupil feasibility studies. Small buildings tend to have enormously high cost per pupil because there's some scale.
But
kind
that
of
also sort of
baseline.
implies that there might be, like, that might not be the best, the best
There's
barometer.
no, there's no great barometer here so, in any event, there is interestingly a sort of a trend though in the cost per pupil. And what you see is from the 2019, 2021 period, 2020 got a little squirrely because there weren't that many programs, and keep in mind, these are just high schools, so there aren't a ton of projects. We've gone up pretty steadily year by year, and in the last couple of years, we've actually seen kind of an explosion in the numbers. So much of an explosion, actually, that I kind of excluded or didn't use the median, because the median would mean that we would actually need 3.7 million. So just, I'm being reasonable here, just so you understand. But if you take the average actually of 24 and 25 on a per pupil basis, you do get to that 2.5.
Now, in any of these projects that they did theirs, did we have any access to their calculations, like how they came up with their numbers?
I have not actually seen any calculations.
I know, I tried Google. I
Yeah,
tried using
I-
Google and it didn't work.
I tried using the Bing, I tried using the
Okay.
Copilot,
Got it.
the
Yeah,
GPT.
yeah, it's,
One
I'm just trying to see if maybe you've had some better
One
luck
interesting
than I did.
data point is Whittier Regional Tech.
Okay.
So they did a project in 2021, they were accepted in 2019. They did a feasibility study for $1.8 million
Okay.
for their 1,200 person school.
Yeah.
In 2024, they went to the multiple towns with a $445 million
Oh, that was that.
project.
Was that the one that, yeah.
And it failed.
Yeah.
They were removed from the MSBA. The MSBA paid them their 50% or so. Later that year, they received another invite in, and just recently, they actually approved funding for a $2.5 million feasibility study, because the MSBA actually made them do it all again, start from scratch. And so in that 4 or 5 year period, the cost of their study went up by 38%. So I think that's an interesting one, because that's really apples to apples, right? You're looking at the same school over. It's quite a more apples to apples
That's an escalator. I see.
number than that.
Daniel, what about cost per square foot of the physical plan? I get per pupil, I know they correlate, but are these schools?
And I could barely find cost, let alone, we already say, like,
You don't know the square footage?
No, square footage. And we have the number of pupils, so you can kind of get the size there.
Okay.
But, no, it's fine. I mean, but, realistically, if you look at the numbers, they are, you've got 2.5 for Brockton, which is a huge school, but then you've got 3 million for Medford, which is only 1,200. You've got 2 million for Everett, which is 2,200. You've got 3 million for Burncoat Senior High, which is 1,100. So, I mean, I think that we came, the professionals got together and said, 2.5 seems to be the right number. If anything, I think that this data sort of demonstrates that maybe we're looking at potentially even higher. I hope not. We'll work towards not higher. But I really don't think that a number below 2.5, sort of makes sense. And I think the only reason we're even talking about this is because we're concerned about the money. And then, don't get me wrong, concerns about the money, are real, but we don't want to go forward with something that we think might be underfunded and then have to come back and ask for more, especially if it is even, if it comes in even higher than that. So, for me, and that's in my opinion, and we haven't obviously re-discussed this with the full school committee, I think 2.5 is a good, reasonable, fair number.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah, so, what do you, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
willing to say
My-
anything,
my
like, I'm just curious, like,
concern
what you're.
about underfunding it too, is that we won't be able to meet the needs of the community, right? Because when we embark on this endeavor, we wanna be able to put something forth that has a reasonable likelihood of moving forward from there, right? So we don't wanna be the school that spends $1.8 million and then what, 4 years later? 4 years later spends
2.5.
$2.5 million. We wanna do this well, once.
Sure.
And as you know, if we don't exhaust the 2.5, it gets returned. But if we underfund this, I think we don't want to follow the path of having to do this twice.
And I mean, one of the things that's also good about this too is there's also a funding mechanism from the MSBA. Not to say that it's obviously after we've already outlaid, but at least there is some return from the MSBA to pay for some of this particular project. Did we get an answer about whether or not it is at the end of the project or it is when we fund in the middle?
I think, wasn't it, once they set up that pro-pay, so
Yep.
I believe at the end of the eligibility period,
Yes, so,
they set up the pro-pay, and then it sounded like it was fairly
yes, so you
Okay.
quick, like a
submit your
15-day
invoices, yeah.
turnaround, once you start, like, they
Yeah.
reviewed the receipts, and,
Okay.
so I do think that once, I
Yeah.
think we have to get through the eligibility period, if I
Yeah.
understood that correctly, but then once that happened, there was like a little bit of training and a setup with this whatever app or whatever it is that they use. But then it's a fairly regular process, so that
Understood.
sounded promising to me.
And then the last question about this too is that like when this gets, if this gets approved by town meeting and goes out to bid is it like, kind of sort of the traditional way we procure, or it's like, we're 2.3 million or whatever, is it kind of like an ongoing process that we wind up sort of paying as we go through it?
I don't know the answer.
I'm just curious if we have any, I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot here.
Honestly,
It's okay, yeah, come on up because we need a microphone.
Well, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, James.
honestly, I don't know how, James
Okay.
Keys, Facility Director, how this is gonna be procured. I'm
Okay.
sure there's a short list through the MSBA
Yeah.
that we'll have to go through.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there are some, sort of like an RFP, right? We put out an RFP, we get, responses back, we rank them and choose. But I have no confirmation of that. I just suspect that's probably the case.
Yeah, there's probably gonna be something there too, because I think there'd be a little more clarity because if it was a clean, like, oh, here's the bid, and we take the bid and kind of move forward, it seemed like it probably wouldn't be as complicated as it is to try to get an answer about how much it costs.
I suspect we'll have this list that we can reach out to.
It's not that long.
Well,
I got you.
Just-
Thank you, James.
And they all,
Okay,
so,
any thoughts from you guys about, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just
So May has always been the priority for the feasibility study to be funded. There was a significant amount of emphasis on this board that may be the priority. So that's a truth, like May's the goal. Then also 2.5 million is a priority for the school committee. You don't see this getting done for less than $2.5 million.
we think that's the most reasonable number to go forward. Whether it can get done for less, I mean, we'd always hope so, but I don't, yeah.
I'm still of the point of view that the town, through the town manager and the financial team, need to do an analysis of the numbers. You've presented some information to this board. I'm not here to argue or debate what the right number is, as much as to say that I haven't seen compelling information from our financial team to say that 2.5 is the right number. And I think that just means it takes time to dive into this detail. This is a conversation that started 2 or 3 weeks ago in terms of $2.5 million being where we need to settle on. I understand it was floated. But anyway, so May is a priority. 2.5 is a priority. The town has done significant work to find 1.9 million of available.
We haven't gotten to that part yet.
The town has done significant work to find available money. We're here having this conversation because they don't align. And so my question to the school committee is, what is your priority to fill a gap? If there's a
Yeah,
gap
we were
on
gonna
capital.
get to that.
So
I wanted to
proposal.
sort of I wanted to separate, I agree, and that is actually
Well, I
the
just
next
don't want to,
question.
what I don't want to do is string along assumptions to get to a conclusion without,
But I wanted to
taking
sort
each
of make
assumption.
sure, what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that we had a conversation about the 2.5 on its own before we got to the funding, because I think, because we have to sort of make sure that everyone's comfortable with 2.5,
okay.
because if we're, I'm not saying this is what's happening, but if we all say, wait a minute, maybe 2.3 is the right number, it's a different conversation when it comes to funding. That's what I'm trying to point out here, is I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with 2.5. And it sounds like the school committee is comfortable with 2.5.
I am
Am I
looking-
making, I just, I
Yes.
wanna,
Yes.
okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure
For-
that.
As far as the chair, vice chair, and chair of budget, again, in the school.
Have you, well, has the
Well, there
committee
was a
voted
The
on
committee
that?
has voted on 2.5, but we haven't
Yes.
And I'm not asking you to redo it, I just wanted to know,
Yeah.
like, if that has been the
Yes.
vote,
Yes,
you've voted
yes,
on
what
2.5.
David Jordan presented.
Okay.
Right.
I'm looking at a summary of information that says that the range is between 1.7 and 2.1 million, with an average cost per pupil of 2,109, multiplied then by the number of pupils if it's 5 grades versus 4 grades. So I'm looking at information that is telling me that the range is between 1.7 and 2.1 million. So for me, there's a gap in information.
That was the analysis that Ben did and put out. I have since updated that, and that's what we were just
Yeah, with
sharing,
the
showing
point-
the cost escalation
Yeah, and
over time.
what the difference between what Dan did and what I did is I just basically took everything. Dan's looking at it more from a year-by-year basis. And he
Tina?
tried to put more information into that.
Following when Ben provided that information, I felt like the part that was like lacking was how much was it going up each year? So that's why I said, can we collect more data? Can we expand it and look at more schools and then analyze it by year to kind of get a determination of, inflationary impact? Really, I mean, probably just really how much is it going up each year? And that was our real concern, right? Because I think the way it was presented before didn't analyze it like that. I think there were a number of years
Yeah, I mean, I
mixed
just,
in.
like, but I also didn't have as many schools as this.
And I think
the
also
one that I was given only had
the
about
initial
10.
number that Frank and David Jordan and James Keese had come up with was the 2.5 initially, and then you were kind of looking at it differently, and that's what you
Yeah, I
had
was trying to
presented
get there.
last week,
I was
yeah.
trying to use the numbers to, I mean, my brain goes to data analysis, like, how can I crunch the numbers to get to that?
Mhm.
And I was trying to get to sort of understand how I could get to that. And unfortunately, what's hard is because the only 2 data points I really have we only have really the dollar figure and the dollars per pupil, because we only really have the enrollment. So we don't have, like, district size, we don't have lot size, we don't have, are they buying another piece of land? We don't have some of
Right.
those other things, and I'm sure some of that stuff factors in, and that's the problem with this whole process,
Right.
is that there's a lot of elements going into it, and we're trying to do our best to figure it out.
I just think we might be charting a course towards a conversation where not all things can be true. So May is a priority, 2.5 appears to be the priority. So the conversation will continue. I just hope that we end up at a place where, we have a reasonable outcome, because I'm not sure all balls can be up in the air and we land exactly where everyone wants to land at the end of this conversation.
Well, I think.
So if I'm not hearing any wiggle room on the 2.5, I'm hearing that as a very firm school committee request for 2.5.
That's what
Okay.
I'm hearing too. Damon, you have any thoughts here?
No, I mean, I think the problem with estimating the cost of a project like this is that your bearings are based on regional variables, growth variables that you don't have your handles around. And it's largely, unfortunately, a guess. And I agree with you when you make the point of, like, we don't want to underfund a thing and then have to boomerang around. So it's kind of like I don't have great feelings about the number, but I also believe firmly that it would be better to have a comfortable number and that we're not going to regret later. So a little bit of a walking or tightrope, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, I understand 2.5, I understand it, but it feels more emotional, which is really a hard place for me to be. And I'm not trying to dismiss it, because unfortunately, this is kind of the hand we're dealt. This is what information we have, and, and I have to sort of acknowledge that, and that's a hard place for me to be. I also want to the point, I don't want to underfund it, I don't want to put us in an awkward situation, but I'm also kind of like, as somebody who likes data and wants to make sure the data's right, it makes me uncomfortable, because I don't have enough.
I will share this with you, and you can look at it afterwards. I think that one of the things that it shows is that the numbers are increasing. And
Yeah, and I based on, the dollars per pupil, it's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm.
Well, yeah, but that's
but,
the only real kind of way to level set it.
I know,
So,
it's
yeah.
sort of, yes, I'd love to see it, I'd love to play around with it, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's just me doing math
Yeah.
on a spreadsheet, and that's not really helping us to make a decision tonight, which is what we're kind of,
I think it's safe to say that the cost is somewhere between 0 and 3 million. And so,
Thank you for that.
No, I mean, no,
piece.
I think that the data supports 2.5. I think that you can take this data though, and that you could twist it into, turn it into something to.
Yeah, I mean, I
make
think
another number.
north of 2 makes sense. I think 2.5, I'm getting a little, but I'm also, I understand, and I want to sort of get there, but.
So are you?
Yeah, so
okay.
I think, we're, we hear it, so I don't wanna waste everybody's time with a continue, but we can go to the next, which is basically, you know, we get, like Tina brought to the point that, you know, the town has sort of looked for it through capital, looked through old warrant articles, we've looked at moving stuff to other places, we've found 1.93 million, and that leaves us, if 2.5 is the right number, that leaves us $565,000 short.
And so we have a proposal for that.
Okay.
Again, this has not been voted on by the school committee, but I think the chair, vice chair, and chair of budget are in agreement, so I think that there's
Okay.
not certainty, but as much certainty as you're gonna get without an actual vote.
So all
This
three of
is-
you, like, there's a general consensus considering that.
There's an agreement on this offering.
There's
and-
six, there's six
and-
members, so it would be a deadlock if it wasn't.
And Dr. Jordan is also comfortable with this proposal.
Okay.
So, I will tell you that this is uncomfortable putting forward because I think that there's some things here that I don't want to be, I don't wanna put forward some of the things that we're gonna put forward and then have it sort of be like, well, then there, you know, this is, you've come forward and that's the number that we're gonna then do, because I think some of it is trade-offs amongst things that I wouldn't do necessarily if we had to try to potentially come up with, if say that the board was going to support a smaller number and then we needed to kind of try to come up with more money later or something like that, so just.
Well, why don't you make your,
So, okay,
let's see what you got.
My point is, in collective bargaining, there's this thing called a package proposal, which is basically.
Hand down on the table, please.
It's basically, accept the entire thing or nothing is there. I'm sort of putting it forward in that vein, whereas like, it's sort of like, this is all part of one package and no piece on its own is sort of being offered up on itself.
You want the whole, is basically you want us to look at the whole package or none of it, none of it?
Correct.
Okay, well, let's see what you got.
Okay. But I also think that, based on our conversations this weekend, I think it is demonstrating some.
My wife had words for me. She's like, "What are you doing in the Target parking lot for 45 minutes?" So I was like, "I'm talking to Dan."
Well, to be clear, the board has not been brought up to speed on this
No one has been brought up to
conversation,
speed.
so
Ben
that's-
doesn't even know.
I don't even know
Ben
this.
doesn't even know
This
when
is
it's
the
about
first
to
time
be.
I'm
Very
seeing
anxious to
it
hear the
too.
proposal, please.
You wanna wait a little longer?
Come on, Dan,
Okay.
let's go.
So, the proposal, starting at the 1.935,
Yeah.
is that we reallocate $100,000 from our HVAC account. That has currently been refreshed and is at $500,000. It was spent down to, I think, less than 100,000 or close to 100,000 after we replaced some big units. 400,000 is the lowest that Dr. Jordan and I are comfortable going, given that the biggest unit, if it goes, is in the 300,000 kind of range. However, doing this does put us at risk if we have a big unit and a small unit go or something like that. I mean, this is not.
Well, there's always,
ideal.
like, if we had to, we could always beg the finance committee for a reserve fund
We
transfer.
can plead, yeah, absolutely.
But they are beyond life expectancy, which
Right.
is why that was so.
We can
That's
plead,
fair.
but I'm just saying, like, this was not like an ideal thing, but actually this was something you brought up and I thought to myself,
Yeah.
that had not crossed my mind, so I said, okay, let's look at that.
Thank you.
We are proposing, returning the $65,000 from, I think there's an actual real number there, but it's about 65,000 from
Sure.
the Rams roof.
Yep.
Capital appropriation, which we had thought about holding on to at least some of, because just with the solar going in, if there are things that either need to be done quickly that maybe we're gonna be covered by the solar insurance if they broke something, but we wanted to get it done, we just wanted to have
Sure.
the funds there. But we're gonna go out on a limb and return
Okay.
all of that, and then we are proposing postponing 50% of our high school supply request to October. That would allow us to buy sort of semester one supplies for the fall, then seek the additional approval for that funding.
Okay.
For the second semester that would be in, the winter.
Okay.
And then, while the finance committee has recommended $500,000 from the DPW set aside, this would bring us to $350,000 from the DPW set aside.
Can I, all right, well, first I want to say thank you for putting something together after our conversation. And, I realize I have not seen this until now. The board has not seen this from now. So, we're seeing it for the first time to try to understand and sort of absorb. And, the landscape was sort of set by the finance committee chair at the beginning about the $500,000 proposal as being sort of the starting point here in this conversation. So I guess my question is here is that one of the other areas that had been floated, and I've sort of I'll float again, is we had talked about there's the money for the roof from the MSBA program that is not likely to take place for several years. Is that on the table? And if, like, why is taking from that and then repaying it with MSBA money probably reimbursed before it was done? Because as I understand it, that project would not be done for several years. I guess why not use that as sort of the starting point rather than the DPW in this case?
I think it is hard to send a message that we are going to give up certainty of funding for that project, and keeping in mind that going through the MSBA process does appear to be a more expensive process than we sort of originally thought. So the $2.7 million project that we initially thought the replacement was going to be is probably going to be more, which means at some point we probably will also need to actually come up with more money. It will still save us money over the duration, but the savings is certainly not going to be 50% of the project once, you know, we add some amount to it. So I think that's one, is that we probably need more than's already there. We are, as the chair of the finance committee said, we're running very, very tight, and as Frank has said, we are running very, very tight on our capital. We want to have certainty of funding, and so for me that is not a place that I'm, you know, looking to tap from, and which is also why I thought that the HVAC money was a good sort of compromise.
The biggest capital need in the town of Holliston is the DPW facility. If you watch the Heartbeat of Holliston HCAT show that aired on Friday, it's been something this board and many who speak in front of it have mentioned for years now. The biggest capital need in the town of Holliston that we have today, that we had yesterday, that we'll have tomorrow, next year, for the next 5-10 years. The biggest capital need is the DPW. It makes no sense to me that we turn to the DPW to find capital for a high school feasibility.
More strongly disagree with you. I think that we have talked about the fact that the high school is actually the biggest capital need that this town has. We have talked about this for 10+ years, far longer actually than the DPW.
So then I'll back up to 2023, when we had a working group with school committee representation, with finance committee representation, with select board representation in 2023, as the town embarked on the DPW project. We had a working group to build consensus to come up with an understanding of where the priorities would be in taking on this DPW project. The high school building project was always a part of that conversation, and we ensured that by having representation by the school committee in that working group. We have a March 2023 working group memo from those three collective bodies that presented a funding mechanism for the DPW, identifying it as the priority capital project that set aside $7 million of capital expenditure funds to lower both the excluded and non-excluded debt component of the DPW project. This was a consensus building endeavor. This was a working group combined with school committee, select board, and finance committee, yes.
Yeah.
So to move the goalpost a month from town meeting, when we're about to present a ballot question for DPW funding, to move the goalpost and say today, the priority is $2.5 million appropriated in May of 2026, makes no sense to me. The DPW is falling down. It is our biggest capital need. It is an enormous project this town needs to take on, and we've been working for 3 years with consensus building from the school committee and the finance committee. So while I genuinely appreciate efforts to find compromise, we've been having conversations for weeks now on where can we find compromise to have the DPW at $350 million impacted by what's proposed here is not something I can get behind.
Well, keep in mind, first of all, this is also removing the truck from our request, when we can get to sort of the delta in the capital request. I was on that working group. That working group came up with a plan to fund the Axton Cross DPW project at $30 million. That working group also recommended that we continue to increase the capital set-aside appropriation within the budget. That didn't happen. We are no longer talking about a $30 million DPW project. We were talking about a $48 million DPW project. So everything is sort of out the window, if you will, especially when you're talking about a relatively small
But I'm not sure
amount
the
of
commitment to the
300.
taxpayers out the window. I'm not sure the commitment to use capital funds.
There's no removal of the commitment to the taxpayers for the DPW. I still think that the DPW is an important project. The funding mechanism for it, though, is a completely different set of different set of parameters than what we were looking at with Accent Cross. It is a completely different project. It's almost double the cost, almost 50% more than what we were looking at with Accent Cross. We did not go and increase the capital set aside in the budget. In fact, we reduced the capital set aside in the budget. We have done everything on a budget for many reasons. There were many different pressures on the budget, but we've done essentially everything to actually undermine the funding of the DPW based upon the way that the working group sort of put that funding together.
I think that, difficult times require difficult conversations, but just like we are all collaborating here on being very creative and finding additional funding, which I feel like we have, we're also asking for some collaboration and creativity on the funding mechanism in order to meet all of the needs, right?
I strongly feel that the roof project should be considered for reimbursing some capital money to free up some of that $350,000, if not all of it.
But Tina, the same way that you feel very strongly about about the DPW and the needs there, we also hear from the schools and see the pictures of it raining in classrooms and having the roof deteriorating.
And you've done your due diligence. You have chased down MSBA program. You have a state-funded grant program to reimburse on that project. We follow the timeline. Our facilities manager keeps us up to date on how that project has and will progress. We're fully aware of the need to replace the roofs, and this board's been committed to that work. We have
Actually, the roofs need to be replaced today.
But
And
the
what
thing-
we are
but-
doing
but-
is by going through the MSB process to try to get extra money from the state, we have actually delayed when the roof
But,
should be replaced.
What
So-
I think we all, like both can be true that we have a commitment there, but also that I think that the question is that I'm hearing from you that it is a critical need right now, and yet we're going through a process that is not right now. We have a process that is going to take several years to get through, right? I mean, we're probably not looking at an actual replacement for this roof until 2028, for a couple I'm I correct in that?
That is that Mr. Keys thinks that it may take until 2028. I'm not going to doubt him, but I would certainly hope that it would not take that long.
I know, but
at the same time, we're talking about certainty of funding. We're talking about a project that has been approved by town meeting, which compared
So
to
is the DPW
the
money.
DPW at Accent Cross was approved by town meeting. The DPW.
Well, but
project
then in the fall, it was also approved for the current location, the Arch Street location.
We've brought this back repeatedly.
And I brought it back to you.
the funding of it has not been set aside. So look.
Yes.
This is what we've come
that's fine.
forward with an offer, which I think is fair, shows commitment on our part to try to work with you. We're trying to avoid having contention at town meeting.
Of course, and that's why we're here, and I understand that sometimes these conversations can be a little hard.
So, but if this is not something that the board is interested in, we, can see what the residents want to do at town meeting.
Well, so there's two things. Poor Damon here. I gotta make sure I get him out here because, we've heard from the two of us. But the thing is that we're closing the warrant tonight. So the intention here is yes, we're gonna do these things, but there's not a lot of, one of the comments that I made to Ken, and sort of applying here too, is we've sort of put ourselves in a position where it's difficult for two boards to be able to reconcile differences. And there's not a great mechanism for doing so. Hence why this is a little awkward, this is a little uncomfortable for everybody, but it's also, I think, an important moment to be able to have a conversation like this, to disagree civilly, which I think we're doing, and I appreciate that, but also to be able to have an opportunity to try to work through some of these things in a reasonable way. So I thank you for coming. I thank you for bringing this forward. Let's hear from Damon first before we move to, because two of us have already kind of spoken a little bit here, and I think we need to sort of put some cards on the table in a second, because I think we need to be able to say whether or not, what we're gonna do here for a next step, so.
I'd like to excavate for a little bit of friction. So I think that there's been a lot of good due diligence put into this proposal, and I respect that you all came back with some cards to put into the game. I'd love to know from my fellow board members that 350,000 amount. What are you feeling is kind of the risk-reward scenario there that causes a lot of alarm? I tend to be much more dollars and cents about these things, and like if a train's coming down the tracks, I'm like, well, let's get out of the way. But I'd love to understand kind of the worry there.
Well, so I have a couple, but the probably the biggest one is that we were looking at if this article does not pass for the DPW, we're in a situation where we have we have $7 million in this article. Some of it's been spent, some of it has not. But basically, we have $2.5 million for the schematics, for the design, for some of the work that the Weston and Sampson has performed, $500,000 for the culvert. And if the article does not pass, we're in a situation with temporary facilities that we have a gap here of potentially close to $4 million, because we're gonna need to, these buildings are beyond their useful life. And they need to, and right now we're kind of working through it because we know that there's potential light at the end of the tunnel. But if we can't get through this, and I'm really looking forward to the fact that I have to do for this. I was the one who went up in front of town meeting for Axton Cross, and I'm going to have to do it again for Arch Street, if that's what we're doing, and it looks like it is. But the reality here is that it puts us in a position that's precarious based on these temporary facilities, because we're going to be in a situation where those buildings are beyond their life, and I am concerned that we are not going to be able to house our DPW adequately, because those buildings we need to move on, and we need a solution, and we need it now. And we're working towards those temporary solutions, the estimates I've seen for solutions that are beyond just a tent, which is not what we need here, because if it's going to take some time, it could be close to $4 million in temporary facilities. I'm concerned about that. It puts us in a difficult position.
And that's
This makes me, and I appreciate and I want to talk about it, but it's sort of like we're talking about one side of it and we're not actually acknowledging the other, which is, to Tina's point that the DPW is important and it is an issue, and that's what makes me uncomfortable here.
But it's $6 million, right?
What's that?
The cost of that temporary structures and things that you're talking about is $4 million of the $6.5 million that's left.
It's potentially $4 million because
Right,
we need a salt shed, we need a fuel tank solution, and
$4
we need
million,
garaging, yes.
And there's $6.5 million.
And there's $2.5 million for the design engineering, and especially if the design engineering has to continue, it's going to cost more money. Because the drawings that they're talking about, like the design particulars, they have to draw every single out. It's very particular, it's very expensive.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
I'm not following. There was $7 million.
Yes.
And was the $2.5 million spent on what was presented?
It is not spent on what is presented, that is paying for that process, that design engineering process that is going on.
Okay.
If it's ongoing and continues, because we have to go back to change something, it will continue to escalate that
Of the
cost.
7, what's left?
So, there were $7 million appropriated in 2023, right?
Yes.
With the original Axton Cross vote.
Yep.
In May of last year, there was $500,000 out of that $7 million appropriated to fix the culvert, which is one of the culverts that we were just talking about. So now we're down to $6.5 million.
Right.
We estimate that by the time we're done paying Weston and Sampson for the schematic design, which we just saw, it'll be closer to $6 million, right around $6 million.
2.0 for schematics. It's not $6 million for schematics, is it?
Oh, sorry, of the 6.5,
Yeah.
that will go down to 6 left, so around $500,000 for the schematic design is what we're thinking.
To what we have, because I remember the bids that we got from them to engage in this process was close to $2.5 million to go through the entire process for design. That was the bid I saw. Am I
No,
completely off the chain here? What am I?
You're saying the 2.5 that you saw on the screen earlier?
No, I remember the bid that we saw from them for the design engineering was $2.5 million. That's what I'm remembering.
That's from where we're in part of the state.
Yeah, come up here.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
No problem.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean, that's
No,
that's
the
my
2.5 includes the full design engineering plans that you were just talking about.
Yes.
On top of, procurement and managing the procurement process. So
Okay.
the fee that we would be paying, so this passes.
Yes.
The fee that we'd be paying Weston and
2.75.
Sampson is about $2.75.
Yeah, they called it out in their presentation today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
But
coming
if it
out of
passes,
the
then you have a
$7
debt
million?
override that is gonna.
Yes,
needs to
if it
pass.
passes, but that my concern if it doesn't pass.
Right,
If it
and
doesn't pass, there's 6 million.
There's a number of large asks on for free cash in the fall, which could be prioritized by the board to put that money back into the DPW sort of fund to pay for those things. The schools don't have significant, fall capital requests.
But, and I appreciate that, but I think we're putting the cart before the horse, because we need to talk about May, and we need to sort of go
No, I'm
through
just saying, like, as a backup plan, there's other money that will be coming, and the work that you're talking about, could be supplemented with October funds.
Damon, you asked about excavating to find conflict. I am absolutely committed to compromise. I know I don't present that right now at the table. I know it looked like I'm dug in on this, but Frank and I have numerous conversations. We've had many over the past few weeks on this topic, searching for compromise, and we've had detailed, lengthy conversations about how to get there. I am committed to compromise. But where I see conflict is the goalpost moving. This is a month before we go to town meeting, before we put a warrant article on for the DPW, before we go to the ballot, to the election with a ballot question for the DPW. This feels like moving the goalpost, and I would hope that you all could appreciate the work and effort that this board has gone through with an open public engagement process to repeatedly hold forums, hear feedback, engage with Weston and Sampson. To be at this point in time with a request like this is moving the goalpost.
What goalpost is being
The
moved?
goalpost is the set of assumptions that we went into this DPW project with, which was $7 million of capital money available to advance this project. Not for the school committee to say, well, how much of that 7 million? You certainly can. That's not what I'm talking about. Your questions are fine. But the assumptions were established in 2023, and here we are a month away. We're about to vote on a ballot question, and we're being presented with a request from the schools who are not showing, in my honest opinion, not showing flexibility in considering the roof appropriation for October. You may have your reasons, but from where I sit at the table, I'm not seeing flexibility on that. And so I'm seeing the goalpost move. So that's one point of conflict for me that has me a little dug in this moment. I'm willing to move beyond it. Compromise is important. I sense rush. I sense urgency. I have felt a sense of urgency over this from the moment we got the notice in December. I don't feel that sense of urgency. I feel like we make the best decisions when we are steady and calm and in control. It has taken us 3 years to get to being a month away from this ballot question and this warrant article. We found out in in December that we were entered into the MSBA program, and it is balls to the wall to get to the feasibility funding in May. That's okay if that's the number one priority, but that's a lot, right? When it's taken so much time for thorough deliberation to get through a process on the DPW. So to be presented with the DPW now as a source of the solution, that's hard. And then the third is just good faith dialogue. To be hearing about this at the table in April, to be hearing about this even in March, feels like this was a December conversation. It was certainly a May of 2023 conversation. The working group held out the possibility of a high school project in their deliberation and in the plan that we've set forth. We've never not thought about the high school project. We have supported it from the get-go. This is nothing short of full support of a high school project. But we are a month away from town meeting article and a ballot question, and we are being asked to cut $500,000 of a $7 million capital commitment that we had made through a collaborative working group. That's my conflict.
Yeah.
And to not have flexibility offered on other large capital expenses when the need for the DPW is well understood by the community. There's not a person out there who would look at that DPW, who would look at that Heartbeat of Holliston show and say, this can last a little longer. This is not the greatest priority need. That's my issue here. All that said, I'm gonna stop talking, and I'm gonna be guided by my board and our town manager on where we have compromise. I'm willing to work towards it, but my conflict lies in those 3 points.
Okay.
I-
Thank you, Tina. Yeah, go ahead.
Other towns navigate this, and they're on the same time frame. So I apologize if you feel rushed, but I do think that when the MSBA comes forth to towns and tells them, go forward, many towns have meetings as early as April, and they can navigate to this point.
And some don't.
Right. And so I don't think that it's untenable to be ready for town meeting with this feasibility study and the amount. And I understand that these are difficult conversations on how to find the funding, but I please do understand that we have gone back through your requests from last week. We have found other areas, and we're just really asking for some creativity on the funding.
Yeah, I mean, this, I do appreciate that. I do appreciate coming and making an effort here. I think it is hard for us to sort of sit here and, we really sharpened our pencils to get the 1.935, and it's like, that's not enough. And it's like, that's just my gut talking here. It's sort of, as the chair of the select board, I expect to be vilified. I expect to be cast aside because that's sort of the nature of this role at times. But it also feels at times, what I'm trying to say here is just that, like, sometimes it feels like non-support of something like this is not an option, and I don't like feeling like losing agency in the course of these things. I want to be able to sort of say, like, look, I am uncomfortable at the 350, but I get it, and I don't like it, and I think what I would ask for, given this circumstance, is that we put forward that if there is favorability under the 2.5, that additional money is returned to the DPW. Then I will be okay. Then I would, and this is beyond what you can promise. This is something beyond that, but then I would be more comfortable with it if we said that, it comes in at 2.4 and there's an additional $100,000 in favorability, that we said that would go back
No, I
towards
think we can make that commitment.
because that would make me feel more comfortable about that the favorability would come back
I would
to
be
the
happy to make
DPW.
that commitment.
And that's what I would want to see, and I would feel more comfortable with it.
What does that look like through the process? You will go out for a quote, the town will go out for a quote for a feasibility study?
You want to bid?
Yeah, we'll go out to bid, and I would expect for a study like this, we would be billed, we wouldn't wait to be billed until the very end, but we'll probably get monthly or however many.
No, but if the bid comes in at 2.54, we award it, we will immediately.
Yeah, the money that's
We will immediately release
the additional money would come back to,
DPW.
would go
Yes.
back to the
Absolutely.
DPW. That's what I would want.
Can we
and
craft a ballot question with that assumption?
I think we could do it as a warrant article. I don't think, ballot question, I don't think we would, because this isn't an old,
Right, the feasibility study is.
this is not going out to the
Oh, I
ballot.
understand.
We can see what town council says, that's,
You're talking about having the ballot question for the DPW reflected to be,
Because these things are linked. I firmly
Yeah,
believe,
no, I get
I
it.
firmly
It's
believe they
not
should
the-
not
not
be
the
linked.
warrant.
Like, I don't want to be having a
Yeah,
conversation
I
about the
know, I
DPW
know.
project while we're talking about the feasibility study. And there it is on the slide. So unfortunately, these are linked. Any presentation to town meeting, this will be linked. And I think that's a very unfortunate thing, for all of the reasons I said before. So now we're talking about both of these things. So yeah, let's talk about the ballot question and what that looks like
I
with, with the language at the table here right now. Let's talk about what it means to have, what does that look like? Because we're going forward for a very big request. This is the project to get across the finish line this May.
So the ballot,
These details matter a
the
lot.
ballot question doesn't actually include a dollar amount for a debt override.
It does.
No,
Or percentage of the.
it'll be the percentage, yeah.
it'll be percent, you can maybe put, but it's not the actual dollar amount. So it doesn't need, you can, especially with a few $100,000,
I think it's,
You can-
so if I remember correctly, the article for town meeting would have the dollar amount, and then
right, but then town meeting could go back and reappropriate that extra,
yeah, something like
any
that,
extra
and then
money.
the debt exclusion would say, like, so much of a percentage of this particular project.
I don't think you would need to, you could craft it without even having that language.
I don't remember what
It shouldn't include any numbers, really, it should just be, will the voters?
Well, I mean, the
oppose
voters
it?
are gonna ask for the number, so it's like.
No,
it's
you
like,
have to present the numbers, but
Yeah, we're gonna have to
100,000,
talk
a
about
few
numbers.
100,000 here and there is.
But I think,
The
but.
logic is the same. You don't want to return to town meeting to ask for more if the feasibility study
And we
doesn't
don't
come
wanna
in
go
at
back to
2
town meeting
million.
and ask for more
So
for DPW.
we're 3 years in on this. We're as motivated, if not more, as
I
you.
don't think you would need to return to town meeting.
Well, I mean, we're
necessarily.
just, we're.
This is what the board's being asked to consider in order to accommodate
wanna-
a request
in-
like
What I'm
$350,000.
proposing, and I'm trying to propose, and then we're seeing if there's, so, we can look at I think if the board is amenable, we can take a look at the language to make sure that whether it's in the motion in town meeting or if it's ballot, how we can get to some of that. It's not a huge amount of money here, but it's just sort of making sure, that's part of the equation here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the ballot question as drafted this evening would be basically to move that the town residents vote to allow 60% of the debt associated with the project be exempt from Prop 2.5.
Right.
I think that what we could do is structure the motion appropriating the funds. If the select board wants to do this, we could ask the MSBA to allow for us in the motion, we include in the warrant, but I think they probably more so care about the motion, to allow for any unexpended funds for the feasibility study to be reappropriated back for the purposes of, reduction of tax bill impact associated with the DPW.
And I imagine that it wouldn't be, because it's an after the fact thing. They might say something and we can figure out some other mechanism
But
if we have to.
let's just pause and recognize what we're doing here. We are linking to town meeting the DPW
I
project
think
with
that
the feasibility
ship
study.
sailed, unfortunately.
But not by our choice.
I know.
Not by anyone's choice, by fate's choice of the timing of which, these two projects have
No, I do think
coincided.
there's choice here that's not on the table, which
The
is again
residents
to
of Holliston are always
consider.
gonna say, we've got a $50 million project and we've got, $100+ million to the town, high school project. There's always gonna be linking because taxpayers only have so much capacity.
I'm looking at the roof project and I'm looking at the reappropriation of the return of funds from the roof project.
That's not going to delink the DPW and the high school project.
If it takes $350,000 off of this proposal, it would.
Okay.
All right. I would have preferred the roof project as well, but at the same time, I agree, but I also feel like the part that frustrates me in this situation is we don't come to a compromise tonight and come up with something. I know that the finance committee will make the decision that they make, and we're gonna have battles on town meeting floor that I don't wanna have.
Yeah, we make the motion for the article. We'll present the motion for the article for the DPW
I know.
article, and the motion will include, if we choose to write it in this way, the $7 million of capital expenditure funds, and that can be amended on the floor by the finance committee. I understand how unappealing that is.
It's unappealing.
I understand
Damon,
that.
what do you think here?
Just to stir the pot some more.
Yeah, go ahead. Right, it's 9:20, what the heck, let's do more.
Well,
Go ahead.
I believe in sunshine politics, like
Yeah,
getting things on the table.
this is good to have this.
Is it our belief, so the main worry honestly is that DPW doesn't move forward and then we've got to do something that's marginal.
It's my concern here, is that we're in a position.
We've talked at this table before about kind of this is a very healthy conversation, which I think we should be doing more of with the finance committee as well.
Agreed.
Which I've never seen and would really love to see, because
Agreed.
right now I'm sitting here going, right, but I would expect, since the finance committee has reviewed the $500,000 proposal, and this is a compromise proposal, that I would also expect
But
full-throated support.
the problem is the finance committee hasn't reviewed it, so
Right.
we're literally talking about something, and there's two members of the finance committee who haven't even talked
Right,
about
I do
it.
not
So
wanna put
they
a
certainly might have
person here
opinions,
in the
but I'd be putting them on the spot and not to behalf of.
I did speak to the chair of the finance,
Yeah.
Annalise can talk, but I did speak to the chair of the finance committee, I didn't detail the
Yeah.
details, but I said, if we came to a different agreement with
Yeah.
the select board and it was, less than 500,000, do you think that would be something that the finance committee would support? And he seemed to indicate that he thought that would at least, be something that
Yeah,
they
he's
would
gonna
strongly
look at it,
entertain,
yeah.
Bridge with that, and obviously ballot questions different from town meetings, et cetera, but I would also, I don't know if in private conversations this has come forward, but could I expect full-throated support for the DPW project as currently described from various members of various important boards, given the way that it's been structured for the town meeting? And I'm not gonna hold you into that,
I would love to hear your opinion, but I also want to kind of keep it here for right now, because it's not because it's just like,
I am going there, I'm sorry.
No, I know, it's okay, but, I think, getting those kinds of moments of support, I would love that, I would love to have that conversation. The problem becomes is that literally we're all looking at a lot of the plans for the first time
Totally.
tonight. So it's like a lot of people, putting people on the spot to be in that kind of a position is premature. But I would hope that we could get to that point.
Yeah.
That's kind of, you know, we want to make sure that we're, you know, we're working together towards these things, because we all benefit from it as taxpayers, as, you know, as citizens. And
I have been public with my support for the DPW project in the past. I still am supportive of the DPW project. That price tag was a little shocking, I will admit, so just, I mean,
You know,
but,
we're here, like.
but, and I'm sure it was to you as well, so
We're
like,
trying to work our way through some of those
Yeah.
things, and we have to sort of process and think about those things. So, all right, so take a step back here, like, just let's go around here, like, just sort of like yes or no, stick comment here, like, if this was the proposal with that favorability would be returned to the DPW funding, is that just going around the room, just, are people?
Non-committal.
Yeah, non-committal right this second, because we haven't voted on anything, but just like, is there support for doing something like that? Even if we can get the ballot question the right way, the right language, would you be okay with that?
Not at this time. I'm uncomfortable with the speed at which this is moving with the variables in play.
Okay,
I think there's more conversation to be had here.
so, okay, that's fine, Damon, what do you think here?
I'm a pragmatic but concerned yes.
Okay, Sarah, what do you think here? Are you okay with this?
I'm okay with this.
Okay, Don, you
Yes.
okay with this? Dan, you're okay?
I'm also a pragmatic and concerned yes.
I probably to a fault, I like to solve problems, so I'm always looking to try to find the way that we can solve a problem. I'm a halfway yes. I don't love this solution, and I do wish the roof was on the table, but I also recognize the fact that I can't make you put the roof on the table, but I don't like how we got to this point that the DPW was put into this conversation.
Yeah.
Sort of, we weren't sort of like, hey, can we bring this forward? Can we do this? This is this is a process problem that I'm identifying, that the select board is being asked to do something that the select board didn't propose to do. And we didn't say about the 500,000. It was not our proposal. It was not our idea. We weren't putting it forward. That being said, there's other issues and there's other things that we need to sort of address in that case down the road. We don't have to do that right now because we're not going to solve that today. But I want to point out that process, that there's a process issue that I have with how this got to this point. That's what I want to put on the table. That being said, there's sort of a rough consensus here, and it's not, I wouldn't say comfort, but rough consensus that this could be a potential proposal for town meeting, that we could do this.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, we haven't voted. We're gonna vote on the articles in a bit.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to tell you here is that I think we're good in this conversation, but we still have to vote, and I don't want to put a vote prematurely because we have to look at the language and we have to do all the pieces.
Okay.
I don't think anything's going to change from that, but we're gonna look at this. And we also need to vote, so, the other piece is that your capital requests.
Yes,
Are you
so-
taking something off your capital request?
Well, I mean, so we're taking the maintenance truck off of the capital request.
You're taking the maintenance truck off,
Yeah,
okay.
and then we're reducing, so keep in mind, again, we have not voted on this, we're in agreement on it, I think that we will raise this as soon as we can at a budget subcommittee meeting and the full school
Sure.
committee. We don't technically meet again until April 30th, though I think we could probably schedule a very quick
Okay.
meeting to just get that done. I
So
don't-
you're proposing $115,000 taken off your capital requests?
Correct.
That's what you're
Yes,
asking
we
for,
are.
okay, so we would
And, but
amend.
then those numbers are also intertwined with the, I mean, some of
Right,
these
but
overlap.
because we're voting on capital requests, we wanna make sure that we have those ironed out. We
Correct.
wanna make sure that we understand
So
what
take the
you're.
plow off and reduce the curriculum, the high school textbooks curriculum by half. And then what did I
And this is what we had
do?
talked about, right? Frank?
Mhm.
Right,
Okay.
that's,
Okay,
Yeah.
so those two pieces that we're talking about is removal from the capital request. Okay.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, is there anything else?
No.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank you.
talking,
Yeah,
and
thank
I
you
really
for this
appreciate it. And
conversation.
even though I know it was hard, and you're having moments, and I know that not everybody's gonna walk away feeling great about it, but sometimes we have to do these things, and I don't, we have some process issues we gotta work out. I think that some of this will be a little easier when we have the school building committee, because they can be the funnel for a lot of this
Right,
stuff, and they can
right.
handle it, and we're not there yet, and we don't really have that sort of understanding of how this is. We have the warrant, that's our jurisdiction, and then obviously you're part of that process with the feasibility study. So, thank you for coming in this evening. We'll keep
Thank you.
talking, and I appreciate your time and coming in on.
thank you all for
after-
the dialogue and the exchanging of ideas and.
No, thank you. I think that's what we need to be doing more of. Give them a moment to sit, or if they want to stay, knock you down. If not,
First goal, number 30 cheesecake.
make sure that's okay. Right. All right. Wait, I don't have one of these. Okay. So let's talk about the warrant articles. So we've got a couple things that we need to talk about with town meeting. I think probably the first thing we should probably do is just open the warrant, because we're gonna make some changes. We're taking an article off, we're gonna move some stuff around, so why don't we just do that? Can we get a motion to?
Move to open the May 2026 town meeting warrant.
Seconded?
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 All right, and the goal tonight is we wanna try to have, this as buttoned up as we can get it tonight, and that is the intention here. Okay, so first thing on the table, let's talk a little bit about what we saw from Weston and Sampson here. Let's go through that part as the beginning here. So, I guess, we're talking about this proposal. And, what the article looks like. I think we might have to be asking you to do a little bit of math afterwards, but.
Yeah, we're just trying to do it now.
Do you want me to move it to a different thing while you do that, or?
Do you need some buffer time?
Yes,
you
I'm
need
in
a few
couple-
minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a couple of things on the warrant.
Yeah,
The
please,
arrangement of
please,
the
please.
articles.
Yeah, let's talk
So
about
I'd
that.
shared this with Frank. I'm not sure if he passed it on to the two of you, but
Okay.
after our last meeting, I looked
Yes.
at the numbering of the articles.
Yes.
I think we do have a consent agenda potentially here.
Okay, what do you think? What are
I
you
think
proposing?
that if we did 4, 5 first, we'd root numbers. So what I'm proposing is that we move unpaid bills and personal bylaw, those two articles, move them up. So they become 6 and 7. So
Okay.
Articles 4, 5, 6, and 7
Yep.
are
A consent
consent
agenda.
agenda. Ben, I know you had mentioned that the revolving fund had 2 changes, and you wanted those called out. My feeling, and I think we've seen this before, is the moderator can call that out, and if folks want to, pull
Yeah,
it out of
that's
the
fine.
consent agenda.
That is
But
fine.
I recognizing your
No,
concern
I think
on
I think that is fine. I don't wanna overcomplicate things. It's gonna be a busy night.
Okay, so first 3 reports, 4 through 7, 4 of them are consent agenda.
Okay.
Then we lump together 8 through 16. Those are all of the assessors.
Okay.
I had asked Frank if he could speak with the Board of Assessors about perhaps a message to town meeting. It's not typical, in my memory, that we have so many. It's not an issue. It's just perhaps something that could be handled quite neatly if there was a message from the Board of Assessors to say, here's what we're trying to accomplish through these 8
As a
articles.
bundle, yeah.
Yeah, so bundle them not only here in the warrant, but also again with the message, perhaps that
Sure.
just brings town meeting right up to speed quickly.
Yep.
So that's through 16, 17 unchanged, 18 unchanged, 19 unchanged. Then move 20, the DPW up to Article 20. So we're
Okay.
getting to it at the start of the night in terms of
Okay.
the rest of the business.
Yep.
I like that a lot.
Okay.
And then that is it for renumbering and no other changes.
So
from my
I had one
suggestion.
thought here, and that is, and people are gonna probably not like it, and probably the people who just walked out aren't gonna like it. I think we need to move feasibility to close to the end of the night. Part of my concern is that as soon as we vote on the feasibility study, most of the room's gonna walk out. And additionally, if there needs to be a second evening, and we don't have something like that on the warrant,
No, I agree.
we're not gonna be able to get anybody in the room. So, I don't, it doesn't have to be dead last, but I
Yeah,
think
I
I
have
would
no issue
say
with that.
we should put it like pretty close to the end, to ensure that we're not setting ourselves up for, 500 people show up and 450 of them leave.
Yeah.
When we complete that task. So, I think, I'm fine with what Tina was proposing. Hold on, let me just pull up the articles here, and I can certainly give you more of this information, Frank, once you are comfortable hearing about it. Let me see, materials, 13th, draft warrant. What I would probably put it, probably like 29-ish.
Mhm.
Like before the Jasper Hill ones and after the kennels. What do you guys think here? I guess we could put the kennels after, but or even maybe 26 and then 27 could be feasibility, and then it's just road acceptance, animal control, and, because most of that stuff I think is gonna be pretty rote. I don't think it's gonna be super controversial. I think we can probably move through it pretty fast.
So you wanna do,
Maybe did sewer and then feasibility, so like 20, so we would flip those two. And I can go through it all, because I know you were doing some stuff there.
yeah, my Excel's frozen, which is not the ideal time.
Not a great time to have that. So I think, you know, I think the only other thing we have to sort of consider here is that we were supposed to take off, or did you already do that? The Norfolk Street?
Yes, so, town council is advised if we, are not paying a sum of money for the easement, that we actually don't need to have it on the warrant, since there's no appropriation needed. And the select board is,
We can do
within
it
its
on our-
rights to just
Did
accept
it-
the easement.
Did you take it off already?
I did.
Okay, I think we still have to vote it, because it was
Okay.
technically on the warrant
Okay.
before. So we can just take, why don't we just take a vote to remove the Norfolk Street article, that way we
Okay.
don't have to,
Article number, please.
there is no article number, because it was taken off. So we just said
Oh.
we're gonna remove the Norfolk Street article from,
Sure.
from the warrant.
Move to remove the Norfolk Street article from the May town meeting warrant.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, okay. And I think Tina's proposal is reasonable, or, yeah, what we were talking about
Okay,
here.
to
I would just-
reorder.
I think I would just flip the feasibility and the sewer.
Okay.
And then the only things afterwards would be the easements, the road acceptance, and the kennels, which will be pretty quick, I think. I don't expect too much. But I've been wrong before.
Got it.
Okay. And then you let us know if we can continue to talk about, I think we could why don't we take a vote to redo the capital? To remove the $65,000 for the maintenance truck and $50,000 for curriculum resources. So it was $115,000 total from the capital request?
Yes, so,
Is that I wanna make sure I get it right, which one we're talking about here. Is it the CADA? What was the was the 50,000 they wanted to remove?
so they had originally had, the supplies impact that I had taken off, but I will add that back on for
Okay.
50,000.
Okay.
One second. So this is the capital article.
It is 19 in the one we have that was in our packet. It would be, so it's the,
As listed, it's,
or did you take the whole thing off?
I did.
on the
Okay.
school side, we have curriculum resources, 275, we have maintenance truck, 65, technology, 150.
Yeah, well, what he said is he took it off. He took it completely off, so there should be a $50,000 line for, I believe it's the, like what is it? It's the it's after 9 o'clock, so of course my brain is mush.
Well, this is the 10th version, April 10th version, so
Okay.
we're removing something from this list here.
No, it's not it's not on that list. I'm not seeing it.
So we could just adopt, accept the article as written.
Sure, why don't we
Okay.
do that? Because then it takes off the maintenance truck, and then Frank, you'll just add back in the 50,000.
Maintenance
I
truck
just-
is on or off at 65,000?
They said they were taking
They
it
said
off.
they were taking it off, which,
They said I think they were moving it to the fall.
But they were gonna add Robert's truck back on.
Add Robert's
So the
truck
net
back
would be
on.
25,000.
yeah. That's why I'm just trying to make sense of all
Do you
that.
wanna take a 2-minute break, stretch break?
Sure, let's take a 2-minute stretch.
Okay.
Okay.
Move to
Yeah, we
adjourn
don't
for
even need to
5
take a
minutes.
motion. We're just gonna take a 5.
Tom, could you just mute us? Thank you. Okay.
Okay, we're good, okay. So,
And I have 3 motions for you.
okay, so we're gonna, let's just go through it. You know, we're going to do, we're gonna reorder the articles. We are going to, have a motion on capital, and we have a motion on the DPW, ballot question.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do it.
Alrighty, so a move to reorder the warrant articles to, gosh,
You can say as presented, because I mean, you.
as presented this evening. Moving unpaid bills and personal bylaws up to 6 and 7, moving the DPW article up to Article 20, and flipping the feasibility study to now be Article 26, with the sewer article to now be 25. So to reorder the warrant articles as presented.
Mhm.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
And the expectation is that 4, 5, 6, and 7 can be a consent agenda.
correct.
Okay.
I have a motion to change the Article 19, the capital budget, removing the maintenance truck on the part of the schools department, removing the $65,000 request, replacing that request with a $95,000 DPW work truck.
Seconded?
Is that what we?
Yep.
That's what we said?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Changing that bottom number by $20,000
Okay.
to $1,243,000.
Okay. And that's what we're, that's what
Sorry,
we expected?
Tina, do you mind
Sure.
repeating that total?
Move to amend Article 19, the capital budget, to remove the maintenance truck from the schools department at $65,000 and replace that with a DPW work truck at $95,000, updating the total amount to $1,243,000.
I think the only thing also is the, adding the $50,000 for the.
Wait, hold on, I don't remember adding the $95,000 truck. What about, I thought we said a $25,000 truck.
Well,
It's a delta.
It was the difference between the 65 and the 95, I believe it was.
We're pulling back from October. We pushed to October a DPW work truck,
Okay.
and we're flipping that. So we are removing the school's truck, and we are placing the DPW truck on there.
Okay.
That's the motion.
The thought being that if we could buy 2 vehicles, one in the spring and one in the fall.
Yep.
Or we could buy the one that we wanted to buy in the fall, in the spring, and then the schools would be able to sort of inherit the truck that DPW would be shedding.
Oh, so the point is they're taking it off by doing it that way?
Yep. So we'd spend a little bit more money up front, but over the course of, the calendar year, we'd be spending less. Because we think that the DPW truck would probably, just given what that it's gonna be traveling sort of just between campuses and not doing as much of the work that the DPW truck is doing, you'll probably get a couple more years out of it in that capacity.
Okay, and that's kind of that's all, everything else will be okay with that?
Yes,
Okay.
we've discussed
Okay.
that with the schools, they'll be comfortable with that.
Okay,
So,
all right.
So the
I
motion
I have a
stands
motion. I have a
with
motion.
those 2 changes.
I do have a total of 1,303, so I have $100,000 for the dump truck, 70,000 for the catch basin cleaner, 50,000 for the ambulance equipment, 20,000 for the building battery backup system for the facilities / police departments, the DPW pickup truck at 95,000, the K through 5 curriculum resources for 275,000, high school supplies at 50,000, 150,000 for the curriculum resources for science, technology infrastructure, 150,000, and then
The 2 water.
the 2 water ones, 300,000 for plant improvements and 43,000 for the water pickup truck.
So you have a total of?
I have 1,303,000.
Okay. Why don't we make the motion that, and then if you could just double check that, because I
Yep.
know there's been a couple movements here, we want to make sure we
Yep.
get that number right.
Yep.
We can approve the items, just making sure that bottom line number is
Mhm.
correct.
Okay, so moved.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 All right, so the capital is done. So the last piece is the debt exclusion to fund, vote to pursue the debt exclusion to fund our street. Before we do that, just like, any thoughts, any concerns, questions here at this point? I mean, there's still obviously work to do, there's still public education to do, but are people, what are people thinking?
This ballot question with 60% being exempt reflects the school's request proposal to remove $350,000 from the capital appropriation for the DPW project.
Yes. So the total project cost is, as Weston and Sampson presented earlier, is $48,724,830. We'd be sort of buying down the amount needed to borrow by $5.65 million. So that would be the $6 million that we just talked about a little bit earlier, less $350,000 that would be going towards the schools, the high school feasibility study rather.
Yep.
As the working group in 2023 suggested, the plan was to have $17.25 million borrowed for within the levy, leaving a $25,824,000 to be borrowed for via excluded debt. The first year of that debt service would be roughly, and this ratio would continue, 60% of the annual debt service. So that would be the question that the voters would be asked at the ballot in May.
How much, so the amount that's within the levy, what does that look like?
That is roughly so in the first year, it's $1.265 million. For reference, within the fiscal 27 budget, we're planning for $1.8 million for the capital set aside.
Yep.
And
then we have and there's also, when is the police department, the $350K-ish, that comes up pretty soon, right?
fiscal year 29, I believe.
Okay, and that's gotta go back to capital, so we'll probably push that back towards capital.
I believe that's exempt debt, but I will.
I think it's in the levy.
Oh, is it? Okay, I thought it was exempt, but I will double check that then. Because
Maybe I might be wrong, but I thought it was.
That is roughly, I want to say 360, 340-ish
Yeah, it
million
was
dollars.
somewhere in that neighborhood.
Next year, I believe it's, this year I think it was 363, next
Maybe
year
like
it's
1 or 2 more
343.
years, okay.
And the ballot will have additional information, just like we do comments for the warrant articles. There'll be, what you just described will
Yeah.
be written up for,
Yep.
like, the ballot question itself is as written, but there'll be additional information
Yes.
presented to the voter
Yes.
on election day.
On the ballot itself,
Well, the language, this is we have to have the language like very precise because
Yep.
of the way the debt exclusion works.
Mhm.
But
There's always a
there can be a
narrative.
little bit of narrative there
Yeah.
too, like what this is, what it's doing,
Okay.
and stuff like that. I believe, right?
I don't,
Yes.
I thought that the ballot had to be very,
Well, it's very
Cut and
clean,
dry.
just like in the,
Yes.
like, this is the question,
Yeah.
and there could be a little bit more narrative, but particularly we'll have a little setup outside of
that we could certainly do, yeah.
we have a setup outside.
Yeah, yeah, I think though that the ballot has to be just the question though.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion. I'm just gonna say ahead of time, I'm gonna abstain from the vote
Okay.
for the point that I think this needs more time. I think that we should discuss this in much more detail. I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that May needs to be the time to get this done.
What, the debt exclusion?
No, the matching piece of this
Okay.
on the feasibility study. So I'm,
So you're gonna abstain from this?
well, because it's
question?
contingent upon the 60%. If I'm understanding this correctly, the ballot question is contingent upon us give the town freeing up $350,000 of capital money for,
Yeah.
am I overthinking? I could be overthinking.
No, I mean,
You
I
can
do
tell
think
me.
that the 300,000, and that was part of what I was trying to figure out before my Excel crash, was that
Mhm.
the 300,000, I don't know if it's gonna change the overall
Okay.
60% all that much.
Okay,
It's
So-
it's all like 1.5% maybe?
Yeah.
somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yeah, so I think, we could maybe take it down to like 59%, should that $300,000 be back in play? Or, excuse me, 350.
I mean, and if you feel more comfortable abstaining, that's certainly your prerogative here.
let me just think this through for a moment. Can we come back to this one?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so we have that. So I guess the other one we have to decide on is there any other changes to the feasibility study? We sort of have a funding mechanism, and most of that, what like that we were talking about, would come in the motion, so it wouldn't necessarily be, you know, I still feel that 2.5 million is a squishy, is way too, like, as a data person, that is way too much unknown in there, but I also recognize that, it's better to err a little high than a little low. I don't love it, it is what it is.
Doing maths in my head.
See, when I do math in my head, there's like steam coming out of my ears, so.
I just have a lot of hair in my head, you can't see it.
Gotcha. Okay, and I don't think there's any other, I don't think there's any other changes that we need to vote on tonight, other than the DPW.
Nope. As Tina mentioned, I'm sure we'll address the comments and such at a later date, but.
Yeah, well, we can talk about another business, but how about we do, it's not gonna buy you a ton of time. Why don't I do this? Why don't it's still open. Why don't I see if there's any public comment? It is 9:55,
Sure,
so that way we
thank
can
you.
sort of move forward and buy you a couple minutes.
Thank you.
Any public comment in the room? Is there any public comment on the Zoom call this evening? Please raise your hand with the reaction button. I know it's late, and I apologize, but if there's any reactions here or public comment.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, hearing none, do you want to go ahead?
We can go back to the motion if you'd like.
All right, let's go back to the motion.
I move to direct the town clerk to place on the ballot of the annual town election on May 19th, 2026, the following question. Shall the town of Holliston be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called the amounts required to pay 60% of the principal and associated interest payable in each year of the bond issued in order to design, permit, and construct a municipal facility for public works at the site of 63 Arch Street, currently known as the site of the Holliston Highway Department?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay. Okay, so we can move that to the clerk.
Will do.
Tina, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else before we close the warrant? All right, hearing none, I'll take a motion to close the town meeting warrant, and we're not intending to open it again. We're going to be finished with it. We can, I don't know when we sign it, but we'll cross that bridge. We can worry about that. We got a little bit of time before we have to sign it.
Okay.
Okay, move to close the annual town meeting warrant today, April 13th, with the changes discussed during this meeting.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 So I think the thing we need to do is we need to figure out when do we need to sign it? Can we sign it at our next meeting? Is that appropriate? Is that the right time? And then comments, making sure that the comments are correct.
Mhm.
So I think those are the two main things. We want to make sure we have those buttoned up. If for some reason, I can't remember what it is and it's late, so I don't want to go too far, but if we need to pop in a Zoom session
Sure.
to just sort of approve it, to just sort of be done, or if you need us to come in to physically sign it, just, obviously, if Donna tells me to jump, I say how high, so, we can, address it if we need to do before our next meeting.
Sure.
But I think we're done with the warrant. Deep breath. Okay, select board member updates. Tina?
Three things. Spoke with Chief of Police, Chief Stone today, to start an education campaign for May 1st. The town is doing a bike rodeo on May 2nd. May is Bike Month. We're updating our traffic rules and regulations to address e-bikes, common sense policy changes. So HPD is going to work on an education campaign that will look like sandwich boards that kind of go out throughout the community, hopefully on school grounds as well, with some, updated information on e-bike safety. So I spoke with the chief about that today. Frank and I are meeting tomorrow down at the State House with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to kind of talk about opportunities here in Holliston, following our conversation with the Senate President when she met with us in March. That's tomorrow at 1:30, and then on May 5th, it's a Tuesday from 9:30 to 12. Holliston is hosting Walk Massachusetts. They are doing a walk audit academy. We'll be using Upper Town Hall. It is open to the general public broadly throughout the region, so it won't just be Holliston folks. And it is part of the Boston Metropolitan Metropolitan Planning Organization's Vision Zero work. So very proud to see Holliston host an event like that. 3 things, that's it.
Thank you, Damon. Damon?
That was really good. Very interesting stuff. I have a request for a future item.
Okay.
I'd love to discuss how we can be more rigorous as a board requesting information and analysis from other boards and committees. I think tonight there were a couple of points where I felt like there's a lot of conversations happening between individual members, sometimes chairs, and it is very hard to suss out if the opinions being talked about are those of the chairs, of the committee / board, of parts of the committee and board. And even though that I think it makes it maybe a little less practical, I think it would be a really useful idea to have in mind, like how do we actually communicate, request information in a way that makes sure that we actually get information in a written format with a sense of what the broad opinion is and the minority opinion on board committees, so that we have some kind of sticky information that can be transmitted and it isn't just verbal. I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but I think that that'd be a worthwhile thing for us to do, and maybe that also involves formalizing, having more of these discussions where multiple board, quite a joint meeting. I also want a particular eye there towards specifically not asking these boards and committees to say, this is our voted opinion. It needs to be something a little less formal.
Yep.
That doesn't hold anyone to the fire and leaves room for that. I just feel like it's very difficult to have good governance when information runs asymmetrically.
Yes.
And it's unclear who calls the shots and who has reviewed the shots to even have consent about the shot. And I say that even including us, right? It's with humility,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I've definitely been on the receiving and the giving end of that at times, but it just seems like a worthy conversation.
I love that you say that, because that's kind of dovetails into what I've got. I would take it a step further, because I recognize like tonight sort of was a reflection of my frustration over the years of the fact that most of the conversations that I'm winding up having to solve problems are Dan and I talking on the phone in my car. And that's not how business should and be done, and it's not really effective. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have that conversation, but that's not a business conversation. That's a, hey, what do you think? Let's share some information. Let's talk. And I agree with you that there needs to be something there, and I think we have to sort of talk through it. And one of the things that, like, I think it's showing, like, I don't love the liaison system. I feel like it is a very limited system. It is an information sharing system. It is not a pathway for consensus. It's not a way to create agreement between boards, and I think sometimes that is lacking. And I think we need to sort of rethink things like town meeting. One of the things I hear is when they see the finance committee and the select board arguing, they see us as the same entity, and yet they're like, why are they fighting? And it's like, people don't understand the inside baseball. They don't have to. They shouldn't have to. But there needs to be mechanisms by which disagreements are articulated and brought forward. And I think what I was thinking about, and what I want to propose is to say something like, okay, we've passed the level 3 budget. We send it to the finance committee and we say, send us any questions or comments in advance of our next meeting. And it's not bring your liaison, it's no, the finance committee needs to put them together and send them to us. There needs to be a formal process by which boards and committees can disagree. And this is beyond the conversation this evening. I think that, I think one of the things we see a lot of times, we see very good vertical conversations. The horizontal conversations between boards is lacking, and I see this at times, like I've seen this in other places as well. And this is something I'm going to bring forward in my Envisioning Future Holliston conversations, because part of that's good governance and trying to figure out ways to get boards to talk with each other in constructive mechanisms. Tonight was messy, but at least I felt like it was something, and I asked them on Friday, and they came today. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate that it might not have been the prettiest and easiest thing, it might not have been the most productive, but at least I felt like it was a step in the direction, and I want to get more towards that. So I think there's a bigger conversation to have.
To your question or request, I think that the Town Manager Act offers us an opportunity, and I would start there.
Yes.
In terms of the professionalizing of how government works here in Holliston. That was, for me, lacking at the table tonight, was the dialogue that was being run through town staff, and having town staff guide the recommendations back to the respective boards. I think that that is the area by which the strongest communication is built. We have fantastic people who work here in the town of Holliston. We need to let them do their jobs well and advise their boards well. And I think that removes much of the dialogue that we had tonight. That's my
Maybe.
honest opinion. But I think where we are new to the Town Manager Act, I would go there first to see
Yeah.
how do we use that to strengthen communication among boards and committees, and use it as the tool that it really can be, and rely on the professional expertise that we have sitting within our
But I think,
wonderful employees.
and I do agree with our fantastic employees, and I think, let's, so we can sort of table this and let's put it up for a deeper discussion, like after we kind of get through the next few weeks, and talk amongst ourselves, come up with some ideas, and then start bringing in other entities as required. in that
Second
sense.
thing, not
Oh,
to be.
I didn't mean to, I thought you were done, I
Oh, okay,
apologize.
so, not to be controversial, and again, most junior
Be
member.
controversial, go
Most
ahead.
junior member of the board in years, and
Go ahead.
some of this stuff, it is my understanding. Tonight, we had a conversation with Ken, who I think was trying to do his best, and he mentioned something about trying to be a certain amount below the budget for our expenditures. So that to me sounds like fiscal policy.
Yes.
It is my belief that the select board sets fiscal policy, and the finance committee advises on fiscal policy. It does not suggest it, it reviews it. It can suggest funding sources if it gives multiple funding sources, but it cannot say this is the funding source, because that would be setting a policy.
So,
I guess what I'm saying is, shouldn't we set, if there is such an amount, a target, should that not be ours to set, and then they tell us how that can be accomplished?
well, I think, two things along that line. One is the Town Manager Act explicitly talks about revenue, and it's an agreement between the town manager and the finance committee. I don't love that, but it was a compromise that I had to put forward to get the finance committee's buy-in on the board. And at least that way there's some agency between both, and one can't sabotage the other, because then you just won't get anything done.
Is that different from the fiscal policy of setting the
So,
target?
yeah, the point you're trying to make here too is to take it a step further, which is to talk about revenue, and the thing is, when I first got on the finance committee, there was a financial policy from the finance committee, which is not considered a town policy until the select board adopts it. The select board adopts it, and we have taken to saying that the finance committee and the select board can agree on these parameters and feel comfortable with it and have that. And, at the end of the day, unless the select board adopts it, it's not town policy, it's just a recommendation from the finance committee. I think there's some cracks in the process, and I hear what you're saying, and, there's some issues that need to be addressed there, and I think that's part of what we need to sort of put some of these issues on the table. And part of what I was trying to do with Ken tonight was to get him to say those things, so I can say, we disagree, we understand, because what generally happens is that those things come forward at town meeting.
Right.
And that's the first time sort of that process happens, and that is a breakdown. If we're having that disagreement at town meeting floor and we have not had a conversation previously, that's a breakdown.
I
So-
actually don't disagree with Dr. Shada's intent there. I mean it more from the point of view of,
I feel it is a process failure, not necessarily a bad
Bless
policy.
you.
yeah, and, well, and that's the
But-
thing, it's that, like, we should adopt a policy around that.
But we should have a conversation about the policy, and it should be a mutual policy. It should not be Dr. Shada deciding
Right,
that, and the finance committee deciding at the last minute to do so.
Even
That's,
if it's a great idea.
even if it's a great idea, then it should have been in none of us have heard any of it. It wasn't in the letter at the beginning. It wasn't in any of the processes previously. It was brought forward at the end. And it's not that it's a bad idea. It's just
Not at all.
the process was broken.
And that's kind of the umbrella of my other business thing, which is that I think we have a lot of really smart, good people all trying to do the good things.
Yep.
And there's just kind of like an understanding, a general person's agreement about a lot of ways of communicating, and that has been causing little waves here and there. And there's no reason we shouldn't formalize that.
Agreed.
and be
We need
more
to
efficient.
fix that.
That's all I got, sir.
Thank you very much. I kind of gave mine, so I'm done at this point, so. Let's get through it. Warrants?
Yes, warrants.
We'll move fast.
This one we have to do. I was gonna say I can forego my update for tonight, but the warrant, we've had just one signed since we met last week.
Yep.
$2,535,161.78
Bless you.
dated April 2nd, 2026.
Do you have anything pressing in the?
Nothing pressing.
Okay. Board business, anybody object to the consent agenda this evening?
None? I will though quickly, real quick, just because we got a nice letter of interest. We will be receiving a lot more of these. Dear Holliston Select Board, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm interested in volunteering with the Holliston Cultural Council and understand the position is a 3-year commitment with monthly meetings. As a Holliston resident and teaching artist, curator, and former fine art gallery, I believe experience and interests align well with the position. Formerly served on the Boylston Cultural Council prior to moving to Holliston and understand the responsibility of a volunteer commitment. Thank you for this opportunity and look forward to hearing from you. This is from Cheryl Clinton, who has unanimous support of the Cultural Council for appointment this evening. So
Thank you.
move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you to Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Other business, Tina?
None at this hour, thank you.
Did we have a, we had one more,
We only had one thing in the board business, which is appointment of Cheryl Clinton to the Cultural Council. Am I missing something?
yep, nope, you were totally right. Never mind.
Okay. Tina's good. Damon, you're good. 2 quick points. First is that I think we need to set a time for a forum for a DPW, just to have another conversation about it. Let's do that offline. We can schedule, so we can have that on email. We don't necessarily, it's not an open meeting law violation to have that conversation, so rather than trying to go through it tonight. And the second thing is, I still see her on there, Jess Omen. There's been conversation about appointment for the school committee open seat. And I'll put it out in an open session that I am not in favor of an appointment before the election. I believe it is
You're here.
important to wait for the process to reconcile, and we can make the appointments after the election has been concluded. And that is my personal opinion. If you guys want to weigh in and say anything, that's fine. If you don't worry about it. But I'm not intending to schedule anything,
Okay.
and I don't intend to entertain anything. I think we need to wait for the voters to have their say, and then we can talk about it after that.
It's also, logistically, it would be a significant challenge to do that well
Yes.
as we head into town meeting and the election, and so
That's
I would
an added
not,
barrier.
I would not direct staff resources to this as a priority, given everything else we have going on.
So,
I'm with you. I believe the candidate mentioned who's online, completely capable, but I think it's best to wait off until.
yeah, and I think that's supposed to do. So after that, Frank, do you have any other business tonight?
No.
All right, I will take a motion to adjourn at
So moved.
10:11 p.m.
Second.
All right, all's in favor?
Aye.
Yes. All right, we are done. Have a great evening. We'll see you again on the 27th.